you bore the king a son, you ended 15 years of uncertainty and doubt. Aegon, like his namesake, was born to rule the Seven Kingdoms. You mustn't ignore the certain truth that if Rhaenyra were to step over Aegon to ascend the throne, the realm would tear itself apart.
They all swore obeisance to her. Our house among them.
That was before Aegon.
We are the sword in the darkness. We are the shield that guards the realms of men. We are Game of Microphones. And now, it's your host, Sir Duncan the Fearsome.
Good morrow, hunters and huntresses, and welcome to Game of Microphones. I'm Lord Sterling, Sir Duncan the Fearsome, guardian of the Golden Spear.
And I'm Lord Zack, the surprise Valerian dragon rider coming on the clouds.
Nice. Welcome to episode 123.
On this episode, we're covering House of the Dragon, Season 1, Episode 3, Second of His Name.
And in case you're not already aware, this podcast is from the perspective of someone who's current on the show. That means you've seen all previously aired episodes of Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. And if not, there's still time to be crushed by a dragon's foot, so you don't have to hear these spoilers.
Warning.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Nice.
In consideration of further spoiler avoidance, we understand that most listeners have likely not read Fire and Blood, which covers this period of the Targaryen reign. Therefore, we will only be discussing events from the Dance of Dragons that have already come to pass on House of the Dragon, and we'll take caution not to spoil drama that is still to come on the show. And real quick, if you're enjoying our coverage of House of the Dragon and our complete series rewatch of Game of Thrones, which covers every episode in depth, and would like to help GOM get out of the red and into the black, your support would be greatly appreciated at this time. Please consider joining our Patreon at patreon.com/GOM podcast or donating to keep our show alive at paypal.com/GOM podcast. Or if you'd like to support us without spending any money, use our Amazon affiliate link located in this podcast's description and at gameofmicrophones.com. Scroll all the way to the bottom for your online shopping, and we'll get a little kickback from Amazon for sending you their way. Thanks.
Please take the black and help us get into the black.
Yeah, there you go. Nice. Without any further ado, let's get into our top 5 highlights of House of the Dragon, Season 1, Episode 3, Second of His Name. What'd you think, Lord Zack?
Oh man, this was a really fantastic episode. I don't know what, I guess I wasn't expecting to be blown away, and just, it's getting into the middle of the season. So, I was thinking maybe there'll be some filler, nothing too crazy, but it started out, hot and fast, and it just stayed, the action throughout the episode. And not just action, but the dramatic action of what's going on between Rhaenyra and Alicent and Viserys and baby Aegon and Otto Hightower. I was just surprised after it ended how much I really enjoyed it. So
that's awesome.
5 out of 5, I think.
Sweet. Yeah, I liked it a lot too. I'm right up there. I don't know if it's a 5 just because it's hard for anything to be perfect. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm very generous.
But I'm right up there as well in the same stratosphere. So what did you have as your number 5, good sir?
My number 5, it's basically my number 1, but I want to talk about it first.
Sure.
Is
random order.
Team Rhaenyra. Let's go. I'm here for Rhaenyra. Everybody else that thinks they have a claim, get in line, because I'm here for Rhaenyra. Just sign me up. I'm her sworn shield and
sword.
Sworn shield and sword. And if anybody wants to dispute me, come at me, bro.
I'm right here, dude. I'm right here. I'm Team Daemon.
Nice.
Just jokingly, pretty much.
It's everything. Some people are saying, oh, she's going through this teenage, rebellion phase, and she sort of is, but she has a lot of merit to her complaints about what's going on, marrying her best friend and being kept in the dark about the whole situation.
Yeah.
Now we've got, a 2-year time jump, 2 years plus, because there's 9 months of pregnancy, presuming that Allison wasn't already knocked up last episode. So over, a 2.5 year, give or take time jump, and the whole realm is fawning over, baby Aegon. So Rhaenyra has a lot of gripes, but I feel like every single problem that she has a complaint about is warranted and merited.
Yeah, a lot of
So
uncertainty.
exactly, absolutely. I mean, that's what the whole dance is about. But as I read through the books, I always sort of, came down slightly on the side of Rhaenyra, versus, the Hightowers and their claim as the show story moves forward. But I was like, I could kind of see both sides.
Sure.
But now that seeing it, in the show and seeing how Rhaenyra is portrayed, seeing how the Hightowers are portrayed, seeing how Daemon, and I like Daemon too a lot. But I don't want to give anything away, but I'm here for Rhaenyra and her claim.
Nice. Yeah, that's totally understandable. She's clearly the protagonist in this series, as far as
Yeah,
I
just
am
the moment
concerned.
that really got me. I mean, that the moment with the White Stag on the hill, was
Oh,
very, obviously very important and symbolic. Basically, the gods or the universe, they were saying the White Stag was going to be the sign of, baby Aegon on his 2nd birthday, that the White Stag was the sign that, he should be the heir. I mean,
yeah.
that's what all the people that want him to be heir are using that as a pretense for supporting his claim.
Yep.
But Rhaenyra, sees the White Stag instead of Viserys. So that's obviously, was a very impactful moment. But then when she rides back into camp with Kristen Cole and, blood in her hair, blood on her face,
So
like
badass.
looking like Dany, looking like the Conqueror, Rhaenyra the Conqueror. I just said it out loud. I was like, it's Rhaenyra the Conqueror strolling back into camp. The 2 strong brothers,
So
they were
gangsta.
like processing the stag that Viserys killed. They were like looking at her like, "Hey, girl, what's up? How you doing?"
Drenched in blood.
Dude, I'm just like, let's go, Team Rhaenyra, ride or die.
She and Daemon both ended up this episode drenched in blood.
Yeah, interesting parallel.
Hell yeah, that's awesome, man. And I agree with everything you just said. Really cool. And interestingly, they had the white stag, the white hart, and this is an example of of doing it correctly. Whereas in the new show Dexter, the spin-off of Dexter, The Return, Dexter has this moment where he goes out in the woods and there's a white stag like this. And it's
Oh, wow.
so bad. It's so bad. He walks right up to it and like reaches out and he's like just about to touch it. And they're like having this moment. Like, no way that would ever happen. It would run so fast, so much earlier than that. So that was just highly unbelievable. Whereas this one, the stag, it like pops its head out and then kind of disappears. I bought it more than the Dexter thing, which was just
Yeah,
terrible.
definitely.
Really good. So my number 5 is Killing in the Name of. And we get
Killing in the name of.
we get 3 different kills in this episode by our main protagonists, or antagonists, you could say, for Daemon. But the way in which they slay their targets seems to reflect their characters in interesting ways. So we have Viserys, who's just doing what he has to do. He's forced to slaughter the stag for the sake of the hunt and the festival for his firstborn son's name day. And this sort of mirrors how he tells Rhaenyra that he has obligations as king, that even he's not above, and that he just has to do, even if he doesn't like it. Viserys just follows through with emotions and plans and schemes of others that others create for him and put in front of him, which is sort of exemplified, or which is symbolized pretty well here by everybody else holding the stag in place for him and presenting it to him, and all he's got to do is sort of jab or hit the button to give the go ahead. So Viserys killing in the name of duty. And then we have Rhaenyra, who slaughters the boar, but not for sport. It's because she's being threatened. And this, to me, reflects how she only pushes back when she or her station is threatened. how she only started making moves in the game when her succession was threatened, like stealing back the egg when Daemon tried to stake his claim at Dragonstone. That was her first major move. And it was only because Daemon was staking his claim and threatening her place in the line of succession. And it sort of tells me that Rhaenyra will kill if she has to, but only when she's threatened and not offensively. So Rhaenyra is killing in the name of defense of self and station. And then we have Daemon. And when he slaughters the crab feeder, he violates the doctrines of war and falsely waves a white flag, tricking the Triarchy to put themselves in a vulnerable position before he goes on a rampage and calls in the dragon and the Valyrians. And this symbolizes, as does the way Caraxes just crushes that Valyrian knight at the start of the episode. Save me! He lands, and just his foot smushes him.
But he does, like, I think I took that maybe the wrong way, but he saved him from being eaten alive by crabs.
That's true,
while
yeah,
being crucified to the beach. So I took that as, sweet meteor of death, come and take me kind of situation.
Could easily be seen that way.
Yeah, it just either, burn him alive, instant death, with the heat of dragon flame, or just he ends up just landing straight on top of him. And like it doesn't squish his head. So there for a split second, you could see his head still sitting there, and maybe his arm as it's crucified to that
stake or whatever.
Stake on the beach, but the whole rest of his body is Caraxes' foot.
Smushed.
So it's just smushed, and then Caraxes just walks further down the beach,
casually strolls off.
His tail's like whipping, wagons and people and crushing people. It's really cool.
It was awesome.
People are like, oh no, Caraxes crushed that guy. I was like, that's net benefit. That guy's done for. So
yeah,
he's been eaten by crabs. So an instant death like that being smushed is, all in all, not that bad.
Preferable. For sure, for sure. But yeah, so, it also sort of symbolizes how Daemon will just kill anything or anyone in his path to get what he wants, ruthlessly and without regard for rules or tradition or principles or scruples. He's willing to slaughter hundreds of these people. You saying hello, Loki? He's willing to slaughter hundreds of these pirates just to make a name for himself. Like Corlys said to him last week, there's opportunity awaiting you in the stepstones to build your reputation and show that you're a leader. And so Daemon is killing in the name of power, or the acquisition of power.
Yeah, Daemon waving the white flag and basically war criming the crab feeder.
So dirty.
Is reminiscent of what Tywin arranges with the phrase. Totally disregarding what's it called?
Guest right.
The guest right. Totally disregarding guest right and all the tradition that has in this culture. Daemon is, basically operating in that same vein with, I think it was Tywin who said, why is it acceptable to kill 10,000 men in battle, but not to kill 10 men at dinner? Yeah. Basically to prevent a battle where thousands or tens of thousands of men might be lost. So Tywin is,
point.
That same completely unscrupulous, no holds barred, they'll do anything to win. Absolute cutthroat. And Daemon, I was sort of thinking he may be doing the same thing, but then he kneels, pulls out his sword, and so he kind of got me for a second. I'm like, I guess he really wants to parlay and is gonna go under the banner of truce and basically try to come to some type of terms.
He handed over Dark Sister, like he let it out of his grip. That was ballsy.
Just for a moment, so that he could have both hands free to slice and dice.
Yeah, totally. Great connection there with the Lannister and Bolton betrayal of Robb Stark at the Red Wedding. Beautiful.
Yeah, that's right. Lannisters, Boltons, and the phrase housed the whole thing.
Jaime Lannister sends his regards.
Speaking of Jaime Lannister, I haven't seen a side by side, but the two Lannister twins, Tyland and from this episode, Jason, with the beard, they really resemble Jamie, Nikolaj Coster-Waldau.
I could see the familial semblance too.
When he had the beard and was had longer hair toward the end of the series with the beard and everything. It's pretty good resemblance between the actor that played Jamie and those guys. Do you know if they cast twins or is that the same guy playing both?
I think it's the same guy playing both. I heard that somewhere. It was funny, the
Okay,
line where he said, frightfully dull. It reminded me of both Tyrion and Jamie at the same time, the way he said it. That was cool.
Yeah.
All right, so that wraps up my number 5. What's your number 4, brother?
Awesome. My number 4 is Daemon's pride.
Nice.
And the line that Viserys says about the Lannisters is also applicable to Daemon. Like, their pride has pride.
Which is also a great lion reference for the Lannisters.
Yeah, it definitely was, talking about the Lannisters. But Daemon's pride has pride. And when Viserys sends that letter saying, 10 ships, 2,000 men are coming to your aid, they've been out there for 2.5, 3 years, and they've basically been unable to burn out the crab feeder. They just retreat into the caves. So,
speaking with Alicent, King Viserys says he'd rather die than accept help from me too, or something along those lines.
And that makes you think, as that scene progresses, he gets out on the rowboat as the voiceover of Viserys' letter, comes across to the audience. It looks like he would rather die than
he almost does
accept Viserys' help, and it's a very risky proposal that. You think he's going by himself, that he's, Leroy Jenkins, this whole thing just to get at the crab feeder. But turns out that they're following Laenor Valerian's plan that he's first talking about as we come to the beach.
Oh.
Where they're saying that, we need to draw him out.
Right.
And, his uncle, Vaemond.
Yeah, cool name.
Valerian, Corlys' brother, is saying, well, who's gonna sacrifice themselves and go out there and to draw the enemy out? And somebody says, Daemon,
God, yeah.
right as the dragon is landing.
Nice.
And then Daemon walks up, and they get the message and all that. But he doesn't care. I'm sorry, he does care about his pride. That's the only thing he cares about, is his reputation. And like you said, he's here for honor and glory to make a name for himself. So he's not going to have Viserys come in 3 years after the fact and sweep up the mess. And it had be said that Daemon, faltered in the stepstones, but Viserys came in and saved the day at the end.
Yeah.
So that was the last straw for Daemon. He's like, his pride wasn't going to let him accept Viserys' help. And so, which Viserys had him pegged in that regard. It's like, he'd rather die than take my help. And he almost did. And, he took several arrows.
He did.
So it was really, really interesting.
And this was surrounded completely.
Really, really awesome sequence there at the end.
Yeah,
his
so
whole
cool.
run, the white flag, and then his charge toward the caves after he starts slaying the crab feeders, minions, and it was just a really, it wasn't Battle of the Bastards or the great sequences from Game of Thrones. It was just a smaller scale, but it was really, really well done. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, me too. I loved it. And by the time Game of Thrones occurs, Daemon is known for being the most loved and reviled man of this era of Targaryen rule, as well as being famed as the best fighter of this age, basically. So I've been looking forward to seeing him in action, and we got a little bit of that here as he slices down all those those pirates on the way towards the crab feeder, which was awesome. This is also my number 3, which was death over dishonor, which is Daemon's attitude going into this whole thing. You'd rather die in his suicide one-man mission to go take out the crab feeder than he would accept that help. So this is like his Hail Mary gambit to win this battle before Viserys' help arrives to take the glory away from him. It was so awesome.
Yeah, he like you said, he hands over Dark Sister, and then he has a dirk, kind of exposed, but it looks like he pulls one from under his, outer cloak, and then stabs that one guy, grabs Dark Sister, and slices the next 2 guys that are right there, and then takes off down the beach.
Yeah, massacre. Massacre.
I think he takes a little cover as the first as the first volley of arrows comes in, he takes cover behind, I think like an ox cart.
Yep.
And then as soon as that volley hits the ground, he's like waits for maybe a split second for that second volley to start flying, and then he takes off. So he's not there as that second volley of arrows hits. And then he's just sprinting down the way, slashing. He like jump kicks this one guy. That was pretty epic. And the whole time he's just dodging arrows. And I mean, he's the hero of the moment. So of course he doesn't take an arrow when there's just dozens of archers. I mean, surely somebody should get him, but hitting a running target from a distance at an angle like that is extremely difficult. But it's awesome. Basically a suicide run.
Yeah.
To, trying to get as far as he could.
Leroy Jenkins.
Exactly. He Leroy Jenkins, that whole thing.
I've watched some videos on YouTube of like medieval battle experts analyzing scenes from TV shows and stuff. And somebody was watching the battle of with Jon Snow and Ramsay Bolton at Winterfell, and they were talking about how in real medieval style battles you'd never have somebody giving the like knock, draw, loose commands. It just wouldn't happen because some shooters are better and they can rapid fire, and like he was able to use the timing of the volleys to dodge the arrow fire for that beginning. Keeping it random prevents them from being able to strategize around the arrows like that. So this is a slightly unrealistic element of these TV shows, but it makes for great drama.
Yeah, exactly. It's great drama. That actor they had playing, the commander of the archers was really cool. His armor and everything. Knock, draw, loose.
I love that.
It was really
Knock,
cool.
draw, loose. So awesome.
Yeah, but you think at some point they would say fire at will.
Right. Yeah, maybe like knock, draw, loose for the first when you decide to initially start shooting, but then from there on out, it would.
Right. What was the scene? There was a scene in Game of Thrones. It may have been the Battle at the Wall where they had knock, draw, and then somebody, or it may have been in Lord of the Rings. I think it's an old archer in at the Two Towers where he's holding his arrow and they're not supposed to fire yet, but he just lets it go. It hits this one orc right in the face, and he and so it starts the whole battle, sooner than the commander's meant for it to.
Hilarious.
I always think of that when they've
waiting.
drawn and then they're just holding it there and holding it there and holding it there. It's like, bro, come on, just give me the command to loose.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I got a perfect shot right now.
That's the drama to me is holding that bow for so long. That's the drama, not is the hero gonna get taken out with an arrow.
Desperately trying to hold it. Totally. Inefficient use of energy. Anything else you want to add about Daemon's pride? Death over dishonor?
His pride may get him grayscale. Probably not.
Right.
Probably not the best idea to basically bathe in the blood of the crab feeder. He is covered, and it's like
he's just
homie
dirty.
has grayscale. Homie has grayscale.
Covering him. Way worse than what's the Stannis' daughter's name?
Shireen.
Shireen Baratheon,
right.
yeah.
So Shireen's is
Stannis.
Supposedly like inactive, is dormant, but obviously Jorah's is like continuing to spread.
Yeah.
So some
and
people
Sam
are saying,
figured out how to cure his too, right?
Yeah, basically peeling it off and then putting this ointment all over it or whatever. So who knows? Maybe Daemon's pride will give him grayscale.
It's also possible that because Shireen was part Targ with her Baratheon blood. I was thinking maybe Targ's, the blood of the dragon could be immune to grayscale, but
yeah, because they said Dany was told that as she was a little girl that Targaryens don't get sick. The blood of the dragon,
except for mentally sick,
right?
They get pretty mentally sick.
Yep.
Nice. So my number 4 is it harkens back to a common theme throughout Game of Thrones, which is love is the death of duty, and vice versa. A theme throughout this episode in both series. It's a major theme in this episode for Viserys and also for Rhaenyra in part, and even Sir Criston a little bit. This theme is first sort of introduced as we're riding in the carriage to the hunt/festival, traveling north up the King's Road, which is cool also because it sort of parallels Game of Thrones, where in the 3rd episode of Game of Thrones, they're heading south down the King's Road, if I remember correctly.
From Winterfell back to King's Landing.
Yeah. And so Viserys is caught between love and duty this whole episode as he's making the decision of who's going to be his heir. Like he says at the end, he wavers, and little does Rhaenyra know it, but this whole festival is not only for Aegon. Like she says, no one's here for me. Little does she know that Jason, I almost said Jamie, that Jason Lannister is here for her, and that the secondary objective of this festival and this hunt is to find a king consort for her. So it seems at this point that Viserys is still siding with love, and trying to find this king consort for Rhaenyra, although she's unaware. But as the carriage arrives to the festival grounds, we get Hobert Hightower, which is a hilarious name, Hobert. And he's shouting a toast to Aegon, calling him his grace. He says, "Hail, hail Aegon, the conqueror babe, second of his name," which is the title of the episode. Second of his name. Here's to his grace on his second name day. And this proclamation is sort of looming over the scene as the weight of the decision between love for Rhaenyra and what Viserys wants to do, which is make Rhaenyra his successor, and duty and destiny, which is Aegon and his dream that he had. And so it's sort of tormenting him throughout the whole episode. Then we have our scene with Jason Lannister introducing himself to Rhaenyra, which is hilarious. She gathers that it's a Lannister from all the lions, which that line made me laugh out loud. And not just like the LOL, like I actually laughed. But he starts talking about how, he has the power to build a dragon pit at the Rock. And he's talking about how huge the Rock is that Casterly Rock Castle is built on top of. He says it's thrice the height of Hightower in Old Town, which is gigantic, and taller still than the wall in the north, which is even bigger. So this thing must be huge, this giant rocky bluff that Casterly Rock is built on. Talk about an impregnable fortress.
Not if you're Bronn.
Give me 10 good men and I'll impregnate the bitch. Yeah. Just like Lan Clever, where, he figured out another way to impregnate that biatch too. But Rhaenyra is like, a dragon pit. She still doesn't understand at this point that he's courting her. And when she does figure it out, he's like, of course, a dragon pit to house dragons. I'd do anything for my queen or my lady wife, and she's like, she kind of smiles, but then kind of like pukes a little bit in her wine glass. She's like, thank you.
Skirt. Hold up now. Say what?
Skirt. Yeah. He's bitch made, left in the dust.
Bitch made, motherfucker.
And she rushes to confront Viserys about this scene. And she's complaining about, like, this is what I am to you, a prize to proffer about to the great houses. And he's defending his pick about how Jason's an excellent match. And she says that he's arrogant and self-serious. And I thought he had a great comeback to that, which is like, well, I thought you might have that in common. Like, boom, puts her back in her place with a swift line. And he's talking about, like, since you've come of age, I've just been drowning in parchments from every corner of the kingdoms, all marriage proposals. I've been trying to talk to you, but you won't talk to me. You've been refusing me at every turn as I try to get this message to you. And she's like, well, that's because I do not wish to get married. And it was interesting for Rhaenyra here, duty is the death of love, because she loves doing her own thing, and she doesn't want to be bound down by this duty. The way, like, duty was the death of love for Cersei too. She hated King Robert. She loved Jaime. She was forced to comply with her duty to her house and marrying King Robert. But just as equally as love can be the death of duty, duty can be the death of love. Two sides of a sword, kind of like magic, that it can swing both ways.
Nice. So
yeah, for Rhaenyra, the duty of marriage would seemingly interfere with all that she loves. But here we get Viserys shouting above the the rancor, above the the conversation in the tent. Even I do not exist above tradition and duty, Rhaenyra. And the whole place kind of goes quiet as everybody's like,
Yeah, it's
"Oh my god."
really intense.
So intense. Even Otto's like, "Oh shit." And
And
this
then he
is
has to
like,
step in.
yeah,
Otto
yeah.
has to like,
Yeah, he's
excuse me, Your Grace.
yeah, and at that moment, the actor portraying Viserys just did a marvelous job here. His lip is quivering, and you can see like the chasm between he and Rhaenyra is killing him on the inside. The actor just does a wonderful job of portraying his inner pain in this scene just through his expressions alone. But yeah, his mention of how he doesn't exist above tradition and duty foreshadows how he's forced to kill the stag later in the episode. And I was thinking about this, and Viserys's existence, just in general, is somewhat tragic, as he's just like a puppet following the steps and being forced through life to do all the stuff that he doesn't want to do. Marrying Rhaenys in the first place, he was forced to do it. He ended up loving her, like you said, but marrying Alicent was like the first thing, it seems, that he did out of his own desire, choosing love over duty, and it caused such havoc in the rest of his life, including among those that he loves, with mainly Rhaenyra. And like the idea of choosing duty over love was what he ended up happening in the pilot episode when he chose to save the baby Balon instead of his wife Rhaenys, who was dying in the bed. Is it Rhaenys?
Emma Aaron.
Emma Aaron. Yeah.
Rhaenys, his Corlys wife.
I said Rhaenys a minute ago when I meant Emma. This is the one that he married with, for duty.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up loving her. But yeah, he chose duty when it came down to his wife and his child in the birthing bed as well. And it didn't work out so well, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that as he approached the stag, and he stabbed it one time, and it let out this crazy the sound design for the dragons and for the dying stag was really brutal. It's just like that was just this squeal and the squelch. And even Rhaenyra talked about that in the Horsla Model X. That's what I call their wagon. That wagon is so like futuristic looking. I mean, it looks like something Tesla would make. So I call it the Horsla. When they're inside that wagon talking, she says she don't like a boar squeals like a little child when it's being killed. So and then he stabs it the second time and then drives it to the ground, and he's just like, it's taking everything he has. So I'm wondering if his duty to slay the stag there is he's kind of like having some PTSD flashback issues to Emma Aaron's death and baby Balon. He chooses to save the baby out of duty. He loves Emma, but his duty is to the realm and to produce an heir and all that. So if him fulfilling his kingly duty of slaying the stag for the royal hunt is just he's doing it because it's his duty, but it just seems like it's quite literally killing him in the process.
Seriously. And this scene where he's stabbing the stag, it's also remindful of Game of Thrones, because I think it's in Game of Thrones episode 3 when they're heading south on the King's Road and Ned Stark is forced to kill Lady, Sansa's direwolf. And
those evil Lannisters.
Yeah, and he has to choose duty over love there too, which he does. And you can tell it hurts him on the inside too, as he's forced to slaughter Lady, the direwolf.
A direwolf,
so
one of 6
brutal.
direwolves in the entire universe that we know of.
Oh man, Robert was such a bastard in that scene for making him do that.
Cersei basically rule the roost.
Yeah.
Lannisters.
So frustrated.
That's why I never Jaime was a very interesting character, sort of like Daemon, lots of flaws. But and he grows on you as the series goes along. But I like Tyrion too, but to me they're
lots of cunts.
Cunts?
Cersei is the stereotypical Lannister to me. This is my view and my opinion. And Jaime and Tyrion are the, what's the phrase? They're not the rule. They're
exceptions.
The exception to the Lannister rule. So I just, and then even now, Jason Lannister and his advisor was pretty, like, Viserys kept trying to brush him off, but he kept on trying to, he's like, I'm going to give you this report on the Stepstones, whether you want it or not. And then you're the king, you can do with it what you want. So Tylan seemed better to me than Jason, but man, not excited about the Lannisters being back in the story.
You know, you're a great king who everybody listens to when you tell the dude to shut the hell up and he keeps coming at you over and over with the debriefing, not worried about your wrath at all. You know, like they know that Viserys is just such a limp noodle that he's not going to do anything.
The floppy dragon.
Yeah. I don't know. I was thinking of some snake metaphor, but I can't think of a word. Yeah, the floppy dragon. Hilarious. So similar to a Game of Thrones also, a Game of Thrones specifically, the first book of A Song of Ice and Fire, I heard Alt-Shift-X mention this. A white hart is spotted on that trip heading south on the King's Road as well with Sansa and everybody. And Sansa dreams that her gallant Prince Joffrey will be the one to slay it, which is kind of funny. So we're getting a white hart in season 1, or in book 1 of A Song of Ice and Fire. We're getting the white hart here. The white hart, as Otto describes later, represents, it's like a symbol of kingship in the Seven Kingdoms, which is pretty cool. Interestingly, Sir Criston Cole, the newest member of the Kingsguard, is the only one who seems to notice Rhaenyra at all throughout this whole process. And he sees her storm out of the tent after Otto distracts Viserys for a second. She kind of like sneaks out and she hops on a white horse and starts riding off into the woods. And that kind of reminded me of Arya riding away on a white horse in season 8 after Daenerys roasts King's Landing.
Oh, yeah, she finds that horse.
Yeah, and similarly, Theon is in a horse chase, and he's on a white horse galloping through the woods before those dudes catch up to him and like pin him down and pull his pants down. It was a cool scene until that part. So yeah, there's that cool horse chase with Brienne and Podrick too, where she chases down the group of dudes and slaughters them. There's a lot of cool horse chases in this series, which is fun.
Definitely.
I like the inclusion of the
I always
horses.
try to look and see if I could tell if it's the stunt rider or if there's any, especially when they're going fast, if there's any scenes where I can definitely tell that it's the actual actor on the horse. But I think mostly in this episode, it was a lot of stunt people.
Yeah, I did not look that closely, but well, it's it'd be worth.
Then we know, I mean, if they really wanted to, we know they can use a body double like they did for Cersei in the Walk of Shame, and then just CGI Lena Headey's face onto another person.
Right. Nope, that's definitely Rhaenyra's actress. I'll recognize that booty anywhere.
Right, they did that. They did that with Arya when she's fighting Brienne in season 7 or 8 in the courtyard of Winterfell. Arya gets knocked down and she does that little,
jumping off her back,
flip. That was totally the stunt person that did all that. They just CGI Macy Williams' face onto the stunt actor and
incredible.
Put that in the show. So they could definitely do a lot of wizardry and trickery with the CGI.
Absolutely. And nowadays they can do even more. They're like using body doubles for Luke Skywalker and putting Mark Hamill's face on and then also deep faking it to make it look like he's younger.
Yeah.
It's like
de-agifying.
Damn, dude. So
what
hardcore.
They did with The Irishman, with what Scorsese did with The Irishman, with basically they aged up and aged down Joe Pesci, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, all throughout that movie. It kind of jumps back and forth through a long expanse of time.
Cool.
So
yeah, I got to see that.
And they shot the whole movie with like this setup, this like 3 different cameras for every shot, and they can use computers to like manipulate the image. It's really crazy.
Whoa. Yeah, I've never heard of anything like that before.
It's pretty cutting edge. I mean, that movie was made in the last 2 or 3 years.
Nice. Yeah, I think I've heard of it, but I don't really know anything about it. I'll have to check it out. I like those actors, especially Joe Pesci and Al Pacino. Pesci's the man. So yeah, Criston and Rhaenyra stop before a beautiful lake here, and I'm just taking a minute as the horses are rearing up and calming down, and I'm looking at the forest, and there's just what a beautiful place that they're shooting this at. It's like magical. So nice. So she's all mad that her father is trying to sell her off to Jason Lannister, and Kristen Cole has a great line here. You want me to kill him?
Yeah, it's like he plays it straight for a second. I'm like, I think he's kidding.
I don't know. And I think he probably would have done it if she, he owes
Yeah,
his
she was
life
really-
to her, like everything he's got now, which she points out. And in this moment too, like offering to put everything on the line for her, you want me to kill him? It's sort of maybe foreshadowing a romance between these two. I'm getting a little bit of vibing between them, and she's like, "Why don't we enjoy the forest, Sir Kristen?" She's
Such a beautiful day. Yeah.
yeah. So exactly. So we should take in the King's Wood. That's what she said. So they're talking about Sir Kristen and if he's ever been betrothed. And he's saying that he was adventurous as a youth when his father was served at Blackhaven, so he got around, it seems like. But his station was never high enough for a formal betrothal. But interestingly, when he could have married a common-born girl before he chose to speak his vows as a knight of the Kingsguard. So in this circumstance, Sir Kristen chooses duty over love. And duty is the death of love in this case. Now he can't get married. He can't do any of that stuff officially. So I thought that was kind of interesting, a reversal of the love being the death of duty that we got with Jon Snow and Ygritte in Game of Thrones. And there's another interesting exchange where Rhaenyra says to him, "Oh, how lucky you are to have a say in your own life." And he's like, "Princess, many of the people in the realm would gladly trade positions with you." She's like, "Only because none of them has ever held my position." And this reminded me again of the Sword of Damocles and how the king let Damocles sit in the throne for a day, but hung a sword over him with a single horsehair. And Damocles was like, I'm done with this, to symbolize the danger of being in the throne. And he gave up the throne in less than a day, realizing, not being able to deal with the constant danger of sitting in the throne, the most dangerous seat in Westeros, as they say. And she says, "I may be the Princess of Dragonstone, but I am toothless." And I thought that was maybe like a How to Train Your Dragon reference. Maybe I don't.
Thought the same thing.
Yeah, so funny. So he points out to her, like, "Not so long ago, you held enough power to write my name into the White Book. And when your father named me to his Kingsguard, it was the highest honor any Cole has ever known. All that I have, I owe to you. Now, I'd hardly call that toothless, Princess." And this sort of put things in perspective. She's changed his life and his family's place in history. And I dare suggest it may have earned her his undying loyalty.
Ride or die, Team Rhaenyra. Let's go. Me and Kristen Cole. Let's go.
Yeah. Let's go. Kingsguard versus Marine. That would be a pretty good fight.
Yeah.
So next we're with King Viserys as he's drinking alone by the fire, and Queen Alicent comes to join him. And she's asking him how, if everything's all right, and he's sort of reflecting on the situation and talking about how he named her, Rhaenyra, his heir, to protect the realm from Daemon. She was his only child, known as the realm's delight. She must have been like just loved by the small folk for being like the cute little princess, growing up and everything. He says, "I named her out of love because love versus duty. I named her out of love because I no longer believed." And she's like, "Believed what?" And he goes into this whole thing about the dreams. The dreams comes back. "Many in my line have been dragon riders, but very few among us have been dreamers." And I thought this was an elegant way of stating this with carefully chosen words, referencing Daenys the dreamer, who saved them from the Targaryens from the fate of the doom of Valyria, and Aegon, whose secret prophecy warns of the White Walkers in the future. And he's already passed this secret on to Rhaenyra, and the prophecy is shared only to the heir. So this is like a sacred tradition that he's already fulfilled, and he's feeling conflicted about the whole situation at this point, because he made Rhaenyra his heir, but now he's had a baby son, and there's this whole, during this hunt, they've gotten word of the White Hart, which is potentially a sign from the gods favoring Aegon, so he's wondering if he's made a mistake by choosing Rhaenyra. And he says that when Rhaenyra was a child, he saw in a dream, as vivid as the flames that there's before them, that a male babe would be born to him wearing the conqueror's crown. And he wanted it to be true. He wanted it to be a dreamer like Aegon, who everybody idolizes, and like Daenerys, who everybody worships for saving the family. And he, night after night, he tried to relive it and to recapture that moment and to solidify the dream, but he could never find it again. It never came to him again. He poured all of his thought and will into it. And he realizes now that his obsession killed Rhaenyra's mother, Emma, as he chose the child over her, just in the hope of that dream. And it reminded me of Maester Aemon, who said that dragon dreams killed all of his brothers. I think that was Egg one of his brothers?
I think so.
Yeah. These various dreams that these people have. Egg, for instance, became so obsessed with hatching a dragon and bringing back dragons and everything that he set Summerhall on fire and killed everybody, basically. It's over and over throughout the Targaryens. We have these kings and princes that believe in these dreams that they have because of Daenerys and maybe because of Aegon. And it leads to their doom over and over again. And in this case, his dreams, he's lamenting that it's killed his love, his Rhaenyra's mother, which is brutal. And he's explaining, that I thought Rhaenyra was the way out of his abyss of grief, and naming her would begin to set things right. And he never imagined that he would remarry and that he would have a son. But now he has a son, and it's Aegon, and there's rumors of this white hart in the woods. The gods might be favoring Aegon, and he's wondering if he was wrong. It's like, on one hand, he gave his word to Rhaenyra, and he feels dedicated to her, and she's counting on him, and he feels an allegiance to her. And he passed on the prophecy to her. He let her in on the great secret. And on the other hand, his dream of a son named Aegon has now seemingly come true, and the gods are seemingly gifting Aegon with their blessing with the sighting of the White Hart. And he finds himself once more at a crossroads between duty and destiny and love and his own desires. And he has to choose between whether he'll play his part in what he imagines as his destiny and his duty to do so, or whether he'll choose love over that destiny and duty. And as we know, love is the death of duty is a theme that weighs heavily on Game of Thrones and the series as a whole. And what he decides will have vast implications. Jaehaerys chose duty at the cost of Rhaenys' honor and his own desires, and kept the realm at peace.
For a short while.
Yeah, for a short while at least. But this is all becoming too much for Viserys to handle. He's like falling apart. And the longer he puts off handling it, the worse everything seems to get. Symbolized by how we see now that he's now missing 2 fingers. He's got the glove folded up at one time. And by not amputating it immediately, the infected pinky, he let the rot spread, and he ended up losing 2 fingers instead of 1. Double the damage because of his indecisiveness. And this basically seems to sum up his reign in a nutshell. Help, I'm trapped in a nutshell. How did I get into this nutshell?
Yeah, at the end of that scene with him and Alicent Hightower out there by the bonfire, he ends it with, he says, "What if I was wrong?"
Yeah.
And at first I was thinking, well, that's a two-edged quote.
Couple
what
ways
if I
you
was
could read
wrong?
it, yeah.
Yeah, what if I was wrong in the dream?
Yeah, what if I was wrong about the prophecy?
Knowing, his dream, or prophecy that he would have a male son wearing the conqueror's crown. So what if he got that wrong, which he thinks he did because, baby Balon died, Emma died. And so there's that way to read it. Or what if I was wrong to name Rhaenyra heir?
That's the way I think he meant it.
Because since he named her heir, that's it. It's set. And if he changes his mind, how does that make him look as king?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, things changed. He remarried. Now he has a male heir. But Rhaenyra was first. She's the eldest, obviously a girl. And that's the crux of the matter with all the lords of the great houses of Westeros. They expect a male heir just because of tradition, and that's the way it has always been. but he gave his word to Rhaenyra and to the whole seven kingdoms. All the great lords came and bent the knee and swore fealty to Viserys and his heir, Rhaenyra. So that's his word. And if your word is not going to be honored, if your word isn't your bond, then as a king, as a ruler, as a leader, as a commander, if your word isn't your bond, then your word is useless.
Yeah.
And your rule, whether it's over a kingdom or over a family or a business or whatever you're doing, your rule is going to crumble if people don't trust your word and honoring the agreements that you made.
Yeah. Speaking of Al Pacino, doesn't he have a line? What is it? Donnie Brasco? I got two things in this world: my word and my balls, and I don't break them for nobody. Something
So
like that.
Viserys is, at the end, he tells Rhaenyra he faltered, but we can cover that in a little bit probably, but he reassures her that she's the one. So it's going to get very interesting going forward.
Absolutely. And I think it's the scene where they find the captured heart, the buck here, and they see that it's not white. And Otto looks upset, like the sign from the gods is not manifested, and it could be a sign from the gods against Aegon, his grandson. But this
a regal portent, my grace.
Yeah, such a cool phrase. And but I think it's this sign that Viserys takes to heart, and he realizes that the gods don't want Aegon, and that he's made the right decision in honoring Rhaenyra with the heirhood. And it's after this, seeing that the heart is brown, that he makes his final decision and tells Rhaenyra in their next meeting, when they're back at the Red Keep, that like, I'm not changing my mind. You're my heir. That's what it's going to be.
Yeah, I swear to you now on your mother's memory, you will not be supplanted.
Yeah, and that means something. So, the brown heart affirms his decision, and he follows through with it, at least thus far. But he makes another decision on his own, which is good, and it's in that scene where he's talking with Alicent, where he says that Daemon would sooner die than accept help from him, which is hardcore. So then when he's speaking with Rhaenyra, he's talking about how he was, betrothed to Emma, and it wasn't his choice, but he ended up loving her, and she made a man out of him, and that he's not happy with the position that Rhaenyra is in. She's been alone these last few years and angry, and he wants to see her happy. And she's like, you think a man will do that? She don't need no man, He's like, a family. I had a family. And he tells her, she's like, what would you have me do? If you were thinking of your duty, you would have married Lena Valerian. And he's like, that's true enough. So he's basically admitting here, and he does say that, he chose Alicent for love. He tells her, you must marry, strengthen your own claim, shore up your succession, multiply, and as for your match, make it yourself. Search him out. Find one that pleases you, as I did. So I had been wondering, whether Alicent had gotten pregnant and he had to sort of wed her for duty and to not dishonor her and his hand, her father, because that would be pretty bad if he got the hand's daughter pregnant and then let it be a bastard. Otto would be pissed off, and he would be in a good position to screw over Viserys in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, potentially create a Blackfire situation.
Yeah, so he could have, exactly. So he may have been forced to marry her by duty, but he says that he chose her for love here. And so that's kind of a good little thing to know. And Rhaenyra looks shocked to hear all of this straightforward speech from Viserys. It's been years, and he hasn't been able to get this message across. And like he admits in the next line, I did waver at one time. Like 2 days ago when I thought that the gods sent a white heart for Aegon. But he swears now on her mother's memory, like you said. But finally, he makes a decision and makes it clear to Rhaenyra after years of not cementing her position in the line of succession in her mind, telling her that, you will not be supplanted, which is awesome to, see, basically. So
Yeah, Viserys' whole thing is he even says that he wants to make everybody happy, or as many people happy as you can.
right.
And I mean that's a noble goal, but when you're ruling a kingdom, there's no way you can make everybody happy. You can't make Otto happy and Rhaenyra happy.
Yeah, it's like he
You
gets
can't
caught in
make
between, and that's that indecision and uncertainty that ends up coming back to bite him every time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that so deep down, I think he has a good heart. He cares about Rhaenyra. He cares about baby Aegon. He wants what's best for everybody.
Very much so.
But you can't make everybody's outcome be exactly what they want. So, and he has a hard time disappointing, party A, but giving party B what they want. He wants everybody to get everything that they want. And it's just, that's an untenable position, to try to rule from.
Yeah.
So and like you said, with the two fingers, and then did you see like it shows his when he's back in the Red Keep, and Alicent comes in to talk to him, like it shows him without the gloves on and everything.
I missed it.
Oh no, it's gnarly. So, I mean, it's
so it was
like
bad.
It's really bad. Like they're halfway, like gone, and what's left is still black and looks like rotting. So yeah, go back in that scene where it was right before you go to the Stepstones, and that's the whole rest of the episode. The battle there.
Yeah.
He and Alicent it gets basically sent there by Otto to try to talk Viserys into naming Aegon heir, but they talk for a minute about Rhaenyra, and then there's that letter from Vaemond Valerion on the table, and Alicent ends up reading it, and she talks Viserys into sending them help.
Brilliantly.
But in that scene, look on, it's his left hand, because that's where the hand he cut on the throne in episode 1. It's like two fingers, like half of these two fingers are gone, and they're still black. Both of them are still black. So
rugged.
It's
I don't want to look, but
it.
I have to.
It's not like they cut it and it's all better now. It still looks gnarly.
Still all
and
messed
part
up.
of the digits are already lost. So whereas like Davos Seaworth, he just lost the fingers in a cut from Stannis, and that's it. But this is like a continuing, ongoing rot situation. So if our viewers and listeners, if y'all didn't see that, go back and rewatch that scene and look at his left hand, because it shows it on the screen for a little while. It's very obvious to see. It's bad.
That's gnarly. Yeah, I'll look forward to checking that out again. So that wraps up my number, whatever it was, number 4. Love is the death of duty for Viserys, Rhaenyra, and then the reverse for Kristen Cole, who chose duty over love. So what's your number 3?
My number 3 is we open the very first images of the episode are fire. The Valerian banner on the beach in the Stepstones is on fire, and then and then they kind of zoom out and kind of pan over, and this whole ship is on fire, and that looks real.
Cool.
Like it's really hard to do CGI fire and make it look good and look real. I don't know if they burned a whole boat or not, or if they did it in the volume. So. I saw this feature online this week where The Mandalorian started it in season 1. Basically, they have this the way they shoot a lot of these scenes, and the way they shot the scene on the bridge of Dragonstone last episode with Hightower and Rhaenyra versus the Gold Cloaks and Daemon. There's this 360 sound stage basically that they build, and there's all these LCD screens all the way around them, and you film inside of it.
Enormous. And LCD screens above them, too.
Yeah, you can see on the camera.
So you can see the fantasy set and the castle on screen, on camera, live as you shoot it. Crazy.
What the volume provides in its tool form is an alternative. It's a way of bringing the action back home.
It has over 2,000 LED screens. It is completely enclosed. It operates with the camera.
There are 92 motion capture cameras, and what those do is solve the position of where the principal camera is. And that information gets passed into Unreal Engine, which is a game engine. It's that next evolution of the ability to see your visual effects live in camera while you're shooting. ultimately on the set, there was just this unadorned bridge.
So really cool. So anyway, they're I don't know if they did that scene with the boat burning in the volume, but
It looked real to me.
it's really cool. It looked real. So they
Yeah.
may have burned a boat on a beach somewhere and filmed it. But anyway, so we open the very beginning of the episode, we open with fire. And do you remember the closing image of the episode?
No. I just watched it like 20
It's
minutes
this
ago.
slow zoom on Damon, and he's covered in blood.
Right.
Fire and blood are
Nice.
bookends of the episode. So I like to note how the episodes, like a bunch do Game of Thrones, they open with fire, and it was sort of a Daenerys episode sometimes, or it would open with ice on the wall and you're zooming down the
Oh.
ice and it's, Jon Snow at the wall doing X, Y, or Z. So we open with fire and we close with blood. And
Awesome.
it's just perfect bookends for this whole episode and House Targaryen and everything that's going on.
Beautiful. Good catch. That's really badass. I have another note about that opening scene, which is how the crabs are eating that dude in this case when he's, taunting the Prince Drahar, as he calls him. The way that the crabs are eating him and being used sort of reminds me of the way that the rats were used to torture people at Harrenhal to get them to talk. Remember
Yeah,
with
they,
the
where
hot
they put them in a
bucket?
bucket and then light it, like, put heat underneath the bucket so they eat them.
Easier to chew your way out through the flesh than through the steel.
I'm pretty sure that's a historical
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's
torture method that was really used.
Yup. Definitely.
And
Definitely.
probably still used in some corners of the world.
Absolutely. I would, I would imagine so. For sure.
I mean, it's not really part of my top three, but it's in that opening scene with Daemon and Caraxes just burning the beach.
The night is dark and full of terrors, like Caraxes.
Go for it. What you got?
So it's really cool. They started shooting the flaming arrows, and Daemon and Caraxes, or I don't know if the Caraxes did it instinctively, but he just lifts his wings, and I'm like, I wonder if those arrows are gonna tear through his wings, but he's got some like serious leathery armor, even on the wings, which are this thin, usually translucent kind of material. They just bounce right off of it.
So cool.
And it protects Daemon, from a whole bunch of arrows in the
barrage.
first few volleys. And then one eventually connects with Daemon, and immediately what did Caraxes do?
Screeches.
Ah! And Caraxes didn't get hit that we see to where it hit him and stuck in him and hurt him. So there seems to be this kind of instantaneous, it's a blood bond basically between dragon and dragon rider, and what the dragon rider feels, the dragon feels or knows and can realize what's going on, and then he starts getting his running start and takes off to get out of there. But there's definitely more than just here's the dragon and here's the rider and the dragon lets him ride. Like there's this deeper,
some kind of
biological, spiritual
mental
connection to it.
Yeah, and it's not unlike a warg, as they, the dude rolls his eyes back and starts flying around in in an eagle. They feel the pain of the animal, or vice versa. And I imagine there could be a similar connection between Starks and their direwolves, which is more of a thing in the books than in the show. But
Bran has it some in the show, but in the books they kind of all at the very least have these warging dreams.
Yeah, wolf dreams. Bran doesn't even want to leave him because he can run around with all his, like his legs are working. He's eating the flesh and stuff. It's like hardcore. Arya has some wolf dreams too, right?
I believe so. Yeah, I can't remember if Sansa has any, but I think Jon does, Arya does, Bran obviously does, consciously and unconsciously. I don't think they really get into that with Robb. They might. I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember
Book
either. Yeah. And as Caraxes takes off, after shielding Daemon there, he flies through the air, his body's squirming, kind of like a twisting serpent, like some kind of crazy elongated worm snake-like thing. And
it's really cool design.
Yeah,
for Caraxes.
he just looks so crazy. Very unique shape. And then we get a great transition from all this burning and fire and dudes roasting on the beach to a roasted pig with double pig, with two heads on the table at the at the feast or something.
Oh yeah,
at the
nice
beginning.
transition.
And
Yeah,
that's that moment where we learn that Viserys has a child, a son, an Aegon nonetheless, and it's like, oh god, this is going to complicate things.
yep, very yeah, and the plot thickens.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We during this scene we have Sir Otto Hightower speaking with his older brother, Lord Hobert Hightower, and Hobert is kind of pushing Otto to angle to make Aegon the next heir, trying to get him to convince Viserys. He's like, do what you got to do to get it done, basically. And I thought it was interesting that when Otto suggested a potential marriage for Rhaenyra later on in the episode, he suggested Aegon as Rhaenyra's.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so which wouldn't necessarily put Aegon in line to be king. He might still be king consort, and it sort of seemed like a half measure by Otto.
Yeah,
Which kind of surprised me.
yeah. So, what was the Lord Hightower?
Hobag,
Hobert.
Hobert.
Hobag, nice.
Hobert Hightower.
Right. Yeah. So they're at this little breakfast before I presume it's breakfast because they say that Lord Jason expects them in the Kingswood by midday.
So ham makes sense.
Yeah, a little breakfast, some breakfast meats, some ham and some sausages,
Hamages.
maybe. So Hobert Hightower is there, basically giving Otto his marching orders. It seems like because Hobert is the patriarch of the family, the lord of the Hightower.
Yep.
And basically lord of Old Town, and he's trying to get Otto to make Viserys change his mind about Rhaenyra being heir and making baby Aegon the heir to the Iron Throne. And then he, once they get out to the Kingswood, Hobert is given that rah-rah speech about baby Aegon the Conqueror babe.
Yeah.
For a second of his name, and just basically just trying to play up and get into people's minds that baby Aegon should be heir, not Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
So this was just an interesting little
planting seeds
interaction between the older brother and the younger brother Otto, trying to get Otto to use his position and having the king's ear in his hand to influence and do the politicking that Viserys comes to despise so much.
Yeah, pretty crazy. Almost like he's the one that's been bossing Otto around this whole time.
Yeah, from the high tower.
Yeah, sitting in his high seat and in his glass tower, his ivory tower.
Right, and then Otto sort of takes that into, as the episode goes along, he has a conversation with Alicent, and he says, which is another, kind of a big quote with things going forward. Otto tells Alicent, the road ahead is uncertain, but the end is clear.
Yeah.
Which, has a lot, that simple little statement has a lot of ramifications in the story going forward.
It's sort of a meta commentary about the show, too, because we know what the outcome will be theoretically based on the books, based on the recorded history. But the road there is not quite clear because things could change, things could differ. We don't know what the Maesters were accurate about and what they were wrong about, like Missaria being pregnant, so things in the history could be wrong, things that could play out differently, kind of like they do versus the TV show and the books. So it's a meta statement on a number of different levels, which I liked too. And that statement, that mention of uncertainty, that plays into my number 2, which is uncertainty. And so thank you for covering the beginning, covering some of my point for me.
Excellent. What a segue. We don't plan these ahead of time either.
Anything else you wanted to add about that, or should we just jump into...
No, that's it. Just Hightower's gonna Hightower.
Yeah, totally. So, all right. Yeah. Uncertainty is my number 2, which seems to be a overarching theme of this whole episode as well. And it starts off from the beginning when we see Rhaenyra. We get the breakfast scene. We learn that there's a conqueror, or a new babe, Aegon, and then it cuts to Rhaenyra after Viserys has no idea where she is, hinting again that there's further estrangement, which we do learn. And she's lounging in the Godswood reading, and she's being tormented by the uncertainty of her position in the line of succession. as we're able to deduce from the from like the kind of tone of things that's going on. Alicent arrives searching for her, and she's sitting there listening to this bard play music, and he kind of reminded me of Jaskier. Is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, that's my number two. My number two is Rhaenyra versus Alicent in the Godswood, and how Jaskier, the human iPod, plays into their little tete-a-tete.
Nice. So I'll just say a couple things real quick, and then you can cover the majority of the scene. I just thought it was funny because they're like at odds. Clearly, both kind of, Rhaenyra is more worried about her position and the uncertainty, and they both start ordering around the bard, and for a second, even the bard is uncertain, just who he's supposed to be taking orders from. But yeah, you go ahead and cover this scene since it's your number two.
Yeah, Alicent walks up, and before that, he finishes the song, and Rhaenyra treats him like her iPod shuffle.
Yeah, like a jukebox.
Repeat the song again. And he's like
shaking his fingers.
Wouldn't the princess? He's tired of playing the same few chords for that song. Wouldn't the princess like to hear a different song? No, play it again. So he starts again, and then Alicent shows up, and he stops and says, "Your Grace," because that's the queen. He's playing for the princess, but then the queen walks up.
Yeah.
So he's got to stand up,
Attention
bow,
on deck.
do all the customs and certainties, exactly like attention on deck in the military. He says, "Your Grace," and then Rhaenyra doesn't even look up, and she says, "Did I tell you to stop? Or did I, say stop?" And then so he's like, "Okay, there's the queen. The queen didn't say don't play. So now the princess is saying play. So let me start again." So he starts playing. And they're just, what an awkward position. You're just a lowly singer, a bard, and this is, he may be the royal bard, or he may just be a passer through that they've, hired on for a week. I don't know how these things work in the universe. But he's just there in between them. And Alicent, tells her that she's needed. She should go on the hunt, and Rhaenyra is trying to blow her off. And then Alicent tells the bard, "You can leave." I think is how it plays out. And then Rhaenyra says, "No, stay." And then Alicent says, you can pull up the direct quote.
Yeah,
the queen
escalates.
says, "Leave. You're done." And he's like,
"You may go,
Your
Samwell."
Grace,
and then she's like, "You are to stay by order of the princess." And then it escalates further. "The queen commands you to leave the gods."
Yeah, everybody, when people start throwing around their titles, the princess says, "Stay. The queen commands you leave, Samwell." And then he's like, "Okay, thank God the queen, the king's not here, so the queen is the final say-so in this scenario." So
plus my fingers are sore anyway. So
he probably wanted nothing more than to leave an hour ago when he was trying to get to play a different song. But and then Alicent plays the queen card. Be careful, she could move in any direction. Sorry. Chess reference.
Nice.
And then they have their conversation, and you can see the emotional toll that the marriage and the baby and the last 3 years, the toll that has been taken on their friendship, and how on the outs Rhaenyra feels in this family. So it's very their situation is very tenuous at best.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, the contrast, because we first saw them together at this same set location, and they were like lying down on each, like Rhaenyra had her head on Alicent's lap, and they were all buddy, and Rhaenyra was the one in the power dynamic who was like on top. She was ripping pages out of the book, saying "fuck the septa," stuff like that. And now the power dynamics are reversed, and Rhaenyra is like miserable, and Alicent is like, you can tell she just wants to be her friend, and like, she's clearly happy she's the queen also, but you can tell she's upset. She's like, it doesn't have to be this way, like come on, just be cool. I liked how the bard was singing that song about Nymeria also.
Mm-hmm. They're trying to what's the dream movie where you put a dream inside of a dream? Inception.
Oh,
they're trying to inception Nymeria and 10,000 ships, the concept of that show, into our brains for another spinoff.
Oh yeah. Oh, that'd be pretty cool. They are doing something like that, working on it in development, aren't they?
I believe so. Yeah.
Nice. So Alicent's dress is red, Targaryen red, and this alone probably angers Rhaenyra, She's like, I'm supposed to be the queen, and you're wearing my colors and taking my place, like supplanting me. And oh man, it's crazy. Yeah, she's not stoked to be upstaged by her former friend here. And like I said, Alicent looks genuinely saddened by the loss of her friendship with Rhaenyra. Anything else you want to add about that scene, or?
I think that's it.
All right. So the next bit of uncertainty we get is, like you talked about with Otto and his brother, they're like, trying to make moves because the future is uncertain. Then, Viserys starts off the episode pretty certain about things, but then once they get to the hunt and they get word of the White Hart, that's when uncertainty starts to take its toll on Viserys, because he's like, oh my God, like the gods are sending a sign, but I've already done this other thing. And it's funny how when the guy goes to hand him a piece of poop, he takes off his gloves and starts
it's
running around.
Let me see the moisture content in this dung.
How it tastes, like the only thing he didn't do is taste it, really. He's like rubbing it around his fingers, and then he puts the glove back on and like seals in the scheisse inside of the glove. Otto is kind of watching like for like a couple seconds. Hilarious. And it's at this point where Otto begins angling at the behest of Hobert, talking about the significance of the sign and portent of the White Hart and what it means and how it signified royalty for traditionally in this. And then later on, after Rhaenyra storms out and everything, Viserys is watching over the group as they dine, and he's just miserable. He's caught in this stage of like paralysis with uncertainty about what his decisions should be, and he's drinking and getting wasted. And Jason Lannister shows up with his forged golden spear to give to him, which is pretty badass looking spear. I thought that was cool. And
very nice.
He tells, I would be honored to take Princess Rhaenyra to wife, your grace. And what I offer you, the crown and your daughter, is strength. And it's like, poor choice of words, Batman. And,
very poor choice of words, Batman.
Yeah, and he's like, what do you think the House Targaryen wants for strength? Are you saying we're weak? And he's like, no, I mean, like, just like if someone offered you more dragons, you'd take it, right? And he's like, what, do you have dragons to offer?
Yeah, and Viserys kind of looks up and it's like, this tent is the size of most people's castle.
Yeah.
And we're just out here we're out here for a few days on a hunt. I mean, look around you. Do you think
tent.
Do you think we're, becoming poor, or it's like we're the Targaryens? We have dragons. So what are you talking about, man?
And he just sticks all of his feet in his mouth, and everybody's feet around him just start going in his mouth as he makes digs a bigger and bigger hole for himself. He's like talking about how Casterly Rock is a splendid seat, and she could, Rhaenyra could feel, happy in herself and feel well compensated for her loss of station if she moved in.
Loss of station.
Yeah.
What you talking about, Willis? Loss of station.
Yeah, and he's like, if you were to name young Aegon heir, your grace, and he's like, why would I be doing that? And he makes the bad decision of assuming, which, about assuming, makes an ass out of you and me. Right? He's talking about how many of the bannermen, many of the lords had assumed that he would make Aegon his son and his heir. And he's like, what are you saying, that your bannermen are questioning my choice of heir, my current choice, and he's like, no, we're not questioning it. And he's like, it's your duty to report rebellion stirring in my kingdom. And he's like, no.
Yeah, Viserys totally turns the tables on him.
Oh my God. Yeah. That's like the
he's
strongest.
Like, this is the one time he has like gone into king mode.
Yeah.
Where Joffrey stayed, but in a petty way. Joffrey was always like, you're reciting a rebellion, off with his head, just immediately. So Viserys just jumps right down his throat and just shuts down all that nonsense about changing who's going to be heir, marrying her off, just so that she'll be compensated for not becoming queen. He
good.
Immediately. I mean, this is still a public. I mean, they're not holding court like formally, but I mean, it's a big open tent, and people. I mean, it's everybody. All the important people are there.
The gossip will
Jason
be spreading.
Lannister. Exactly. Jason Lannister comes in there basically thinking he knows what's up, and Viserys totally shuts him down.
Yeah, he like has the unsaid message. He's like, loud and clear. I know what you're planning. You're gonna be naming Aegon your heir and everything. And rebellion. There's been nothing of the sort, Your Grace. I did not decide to name Rhaenyra my heir on a whim. All the lords of the kingdom would do well to remember that. Thank you for the gift.
He sends Lannister, running off with his tail between his legs.
Yeah.
And, it's his Lannister's pride. His pride has pride. His pride, took it upon himself to make the golden spear. But that was just a pretense to have that conversation about
marriage.
Basically, in-person marriage proposal. Viserys has already said he's drowning in parchment from marriage proposals from all over the realm. And this one is just in person. But the way Lannister goes about it and presumes to know what the king is going to do about the succession, and Viserys, stands up, on his hind legs and just totally rebuffs Jason Lannister and puts him in his place.
Nice word there. Yeah, and it goes to show you just like the fact that this conversation took place at all, that there's uncertainty among the bannermen of the kingdom. They're not sure.
There's a male heir, and he's 2 years old. He's survived, those first 2 years of infancy that claim a lot of children, in these times.
Exactly.
So he's well on his way to, barring some crazy, accident or happenstance. Baby Aegon's well on his way to, the rest of his childhood, and on his way to the Iron Throne, as far as a lot of those lords and bannermen are concerned.
Absolutely. And Viserys is just getting so stressed out over this whole situation and more drunk. You could tell that the lack of dialogue and back and forth and relationship with Rhaenyra is just killing him. It's killing him.
Yeah.
And he sends him away. Thank you for the gift. And then he goes, wine. Like asks for more wine. And it reminded me of King Robert, who would be like, wine.
Yeah.
But it was like weak and deflated. He's always doing that. King Robert, hilarious.
Yeah. Tyrion too. Tyrion's always trying to top off the wine glass.
Yeah. Wine.
What was it? Which wedding did Tyrion get wasted and basically totally
Joffrey's
pulled
wedding.
Joffrey off? Was that Tyrion and Sansa's wedding?
Oh, it might have
remember.
been. Yeah, I'm not sure either. Maybe it was
In season 2, maybe, or 3. I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Because the Purple Wedding, where Joffrey's marrying Marjorie, is his spoiler alert, is Joffrey's demise. But I think it's Tyrion and Sansa's marriage in maybe season 2 or 3.
Yeah,
maybe
that sounds
3.
about
Because
right.
the end of season 2 was the Battle of Blackwater.
Oh yeah, because they're inside. It's his own marriage. He's all pissed. He stabs the thing with the knife, and that he's all like, he's got to go off to bed with Sansa, and he's just like, I know you don't want to do this, Like,
Yeah.
the whole thing. He's all wasted.
But anyway, yeah, Tyrion gets wasted and just tells Joffrey more than a piece of his mind. And Joffrey wants to take his head, but Tywin, I think, intervenes and is like, okay, he's Tyrion's in his cups.
In his cups. Love that phrase. I was writing that about Viserys in this scene, that he's in his
Viserys
cups.
was in his cups.
I think it's worth mentioning or talking about, having a little back and forth about how dangerous this whole situation is. As long as Aegon is alive and Rhaenyra is the heir, Aegon is in danger. There could be a Rhaenyra loyalist who wants to eliminate the threat to her reign. And so Aegon might be killed and, smothered in his sleep as a babe to prevent the threat to Rhaenyra's heirhood, eliminating
and vice
him.
versa.
Yeah, exactly.
And if Aegon grows up, and I mean, we'll see what happens in the weeks ahead in the show, but people loyal to Aegon, that the people that want a male heir, they might seek to eliminate Rhaenyra from the scenario altogether.
Yeah.
And then there's no question that Aegon would take the Iron Throne.
It's like John Perkins says in his book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, about the CIA taking over third world countries or lesser, powered countries than the U.S. First, they send in the the economic hitmen, which is his job, and they use money and debt to bring countries under their power. And if that fails, if the countries won't comply, then they'll send in the jackals. to take out the leaders and to install fresh leaders. So first step for people that are Aegon loyalists, the Hightower family, would be to try to get Viserys to name him the heir and negotiate that so no force has to be used. But if that fails, then they would send in the jackals and try to assassinate Rhaenyra or prevent her from being able to be the queen in the future. So I'm foreseeing like, a potential escalation of tactics in the quest to protect Aegon and solidify his claim. It's pretty crazy. And if he does end up being betrothed to Rhaenyra, even if they marry, it would be years before they can consummate the marriage, which leaves open the possibility of annulment and putting his succession in jeopardy, or whoever, and who would be the king or the queen in that case anyway? Like, it would be Rhaenyra technically, right? Unless the succession gets changed, it's just a mess.
Exactly, it is a mess, and Otto Hightower's idea of putting them together as a match is sort of solidifies both of their claims, but it leaves the question: if Viserys never changes his public proclamation that Rhaenyra is heir, is Rhaenyra queen, and then Aegon, the oldest male heir, is king consort?
Right.
I think they would just be king and queen, like Alysanne and Jaehaerys.
Jaehaerys, yeah.
Which were brother and sister, and here they're half brother and sister.
And kind of like Aegon and his two sisters too. That's Rhaenys and Visenya both sat on the Iron Throne at times and gave commands and stuff like that.
Held court and stuff.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting, if Marvel's done What If series, Westeros What If, they didn't have the dance and they came together as half brother, half sister, king and queen, and ruled the Seven Kingdoms together.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. But also, does any of it matter at all? Like who Viserys chooses as his successor? Because remember, on King Robert's deathbed, Ned got him to sign into law that the heir would be chosen, later on or something. I don't remember exactly, but it didn't matter because Cersei just whisked Joffrey away and had him crowned immediately before anything could be done, and then ripped up the paper from Robert when Ned gave it to her. And, just basically commandeered the situation. So if something were to happen to Viserys, I could see something similar happening in this circumstance where both parties are just trying to make moves as quickly as possible to install their proposed leader, and just chaos resulting.
Right. I think even Renly comes to Ned either as Robert is dying or right after he dies.
Warns him, right?
And Renly, Renly tries to get Ned basically to rally the troops, take over in the interim as hand and say, steps 1, 2, and 3, this is what's going to happen.
But Ned just won't do it.
Ned won't do it.
Too much
He's
honor.
like, let the system play out, let things play out, the way they're supposed to. But Cersei, so that leaves the door open for Cersei to, like you said, come in, commandeer the situation, install Joffrey, arrest Ned.
Yeah, we saw how that worked out for Ned.
Any and all dissent, and eliminate
dead, baby.
everybody who would. Spoiler alert! Eliminate anybody who would question, Joffrey's reign, and then Stannis is in the wind, Renly's in the wind, Robb is in the north, and so he calls the bannermen as soon as they take old Ned's head, and the story takes off from there.
Yeah,
so
crazy, man.
Lots of uncertainty.
That was so intense. Remember that? Like seeing that for the first time, how crazy that was? Super bonkers. So yeah, shenanigans are not out of the question in any like variation of this scenario moving forward. So there's a moment earlier when Rhaenyra is walking in to the festival after Hobert makes his proclamation about the Conqueror Babe, and she walks into the tent. And she's surrounded by people, but she's completely alone. And she's just walking through, and Viserys is watching from a distance. And now it's like the opposite of that. Viserys is sitting there on the chair, surrounded by his subjects who are all smiling and laughing and drinking and having a good time. And he's just utterly alone, just drowning himself in his cups. in misery and inner turmoil as the others laugh and celebrate. And it's like he's unraveling this whole scene. Like he's just getting more and more drunk and more flustered and frustrated. And this is when Lionel Strong shows up and tells him the situation and how they've sent people out to find Rhaenyra, and Sir Criston is gone with her. And he asks if he wants to hear his opinion on the whole heirhood matter and situation of Rhaenyra's marriage. And he's like the one guy who isn't making moves for the betterment of his own family here. It's refreshing to hear somebody who isn't motivated by personal gain exclusively, and who is giving a logical solution. And makes the same suggestion that he gave when he told Viserys earlier that he should marry Laena Velaryon, that Rhaenyra should be betrothed to Laenor Velaryon, which makes sense. It would be the best match for Rhaenyra, the son of the sea snake. His reasoning remains the same. Laenor is of pure Valyrian descent. He shares blood with his cousin, Princess Rhaenys. He's the heir to the wealthiest house in the realm. The breach between the houses could be narrowed, because Corlys was spurned by his prior decision, and they've sort of fallen out as well, it seems. It might assuage Lord Corlys of any slights, real or imagined, because he doesn't want to assume the king's intent or stuff like that. That was kind of a cool line. But we must pray, he says, that Laenor survives the fighting and the stepstones. And that makes us think he's in a lot of danger. It's not till a little bit later we find out he's actually a dragon rider, which is super awesome.
Exactly. Yeah, really epic. I wrote down one of my notes is Lord Strong, always there with the good advice.
Yep.
He doesn't seem to be self-serving. I wonder if when he walked up, his idea was to perhaps just not necessarily a proposal, but just put an idea in Viserys' ear about Harwin Breakbones. Strong. I mean, his name is Strong. He's the strongest guy in the realm, and his nickname is Breakbones, the strongest knight in the realm,
It's
supposedly.
a badass name.
I think he has more to, so watch out for him and his brother, Harry Strong, the one with the club foot.
Oh, yeah.
So there's the club foot and then there's Breakbones. Both of those are going to have more to do as the story unfolds. But I wonder if Lord Strong had that in mind when he walked up. And then once Viserys said it, let me guess, you want Breakbones to marry Rhaenyra.
It's like, he's already come up with it. I don't have to say it.
Never mind. Oh, no, Your Grace. He should marry Laenor. Or Rhaenyra should marry Laenor. I think he was coming with that idea anyway, but I just wonder if he changed his tune once Viserys sort of guessed what he was up to.
Yeah, that's entirely possible too. And he's like, oh, now that you said it, I don't have to say it. So I'll just say something else, but the seed's already been planted, type thing. That's pretty funny. So then we get that scene with Otto meeting with Alicent, like you mentioned, and they're uncertain about their future. So he's pushing to try to get her to work on Viserys to make him name Aegon, Otto's grandson, as heir. And he says, when you bore the king a son, you ended 15 years of uncertainty and doubt. So that highlights the uncertainty that's been gripping the realm this whole time.
Rhaenyra's whole life. I was thinking, he said 15 years, but I was thinking
17 at this point.
Once the baby was born, they were talking about from the baby Aegon's birth to now.
Right.
That put to rest the uncertainty. But I had to think about it until just now. The 15 years of uncertainty was when the only heir that Viserys had was a girl,
a female.
Rhaenyra,
Yeah. Exactly.
Until the 2 years ago when baby Aegon was born. So that's okay. Nice.
Oh, yeah. So, 2 years ago, that was the end of the 15 years of uncertainty in his mind.
Right, because Rhaenyra's 17 now.
Yeah, exactly. So I was thinking for a second, they fucked up, because it's been 17 years now. But I guess he's talking about, when you bore the king a son, that was 2 years ago. You ended that 15 years of uncertainty. And he says, pretty cool, Aegon, like his namesake, was born to rule the Seven Kingdoms. If Viserys were to name him heir, the realm would fate him for it. And I looked that up. Fate, verb, to celebrate, laud, or acclaim. Pretty cool word. It's spelled Fete. So me, as a layman, I would have read it and I would have said feet. But
Fate.
yeah, fate. Yeah, yeah. And so there's a pretty tense moment here where he senses that Alicent isn't like too stoked about this, and he's like, "What, does this not please you? Do you not want your son to be king?" And she's like, "What mother wouldn't?" But Rhaenyra is the heiress, and he's like, "You mustn't ignore the certain truth that if Rhaenyra were to step over Aegon to ascend the throne, the realm would tear itself apart." And she's like, "They all swore obeisance to her, our house among them." And he says, "That was before Aegon." And I'm just thinking like, oh man, like as if that matters. A vow is a vow, bro. And it shows that his word means nothing.
Yeah, he's just going to take the what has happened in the meantime and use that as a pretense to maneuver the situation to his own benefit.
Yeah. And you know what? It just reminded me of, I think there's a thing with the Hound, and he's talking about like a vow to a king, a vow to somebody else. What happened? Oh, it's Jamie. You vow to your father to protect your father, and then you have a vow to your king. What happens when the king orders you to kill your father? And it's like you're caught between situations. So he's like, yeah, he's sworn obedience and obeisance to Rhaenyra, but now there's a male heir, and that's what the precedent says should be king. Not
Right.
necessarily though, because the Council of 101 AC only really decided this one issue, an individual issue, that it would be preferable for Viserys to be king rather than Rhaenys being queen. It didn't necessarily set that as a precedent of standard
Like, that
moving
has
forward.
to be the way it goes forever.
Yeah. So
Each king, before this, each king named his own heir, if it wasn't obvious, to where their
Right.
firstborn son grows up, becomes of age, and they're obviously the heir. But if there was some weird situation, the king names the successor. It's going to be this daughter, or this second son, or the brother of the first son, or what have you. So
Yeah.
they're taking the Great Council of 101 and treating it like legal precedent.
right, which
When
yeah,
I think it should only be used to determine what they were determining. Who
I
should
agree.
take over after Jaehaerys?
If they did not definitively state that this is precedent moving forward, then it should not be interpreted that way. So I feel so bad for Alicent here, because it's so clear that how much she loves Rhaenyra like a sister, and now she's caught in this position where she says, "What of my son? Would you have me raise a man to steal his own sister's birthright?" And I like that she's sticking up for Rhaenyra here, and she did as well during the dinner party. She stuck up for Rhaenyra in that scene, saying that she would make a great queen, I think it was, and that she was better for the role than it's the the red wine woman who says, "Oh, since you haven't spoken to Daemon since you supplanted him as heir." And Alicent sticks up for her and says, she didn't really supplant him. Viserys just thought that she would be a better fit for the role, And that's when Rhaenyra has a great line to Redwine, the woman. She says, "Well, what have you done for the realm other than eating cake?"
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hilarious.
Yeah, eat your cake, Lady Redwine, you and your pug.
Yeah, the pug did get some of that cake too. And then it cuts over to, so Otto tells her, like, you have to guide Viserys towards reason, because he'll never find it on his own. And then it cuts to the stepstones. Well, not necessarily. Later on, the next scene with uncertainty is regarding the stepstones and their uncertain victory. And the uncertainty that they're feeling as far as their chances of winning is causing tumult between the men. And Vaemond is sowing some what's the word I'm looking for here?
Mutinous.
Mutiny. Yeah. Exactly. And so that's, they're all arguing among each other, which is pretty intense. And it just shows that, the uncertainty is not a good thing, basically. Basically. Oh, so then there's the other scene where I think it's when Alicent is talking with Viserys, and they're discussing the situation and Rhaenyra and the sea snake situation over there with the stepstones. And Alicent reads the letter and realizes that they need aid, and she's like, "Well, why aren't you sending it?" And he's like, because it was a war started by two malcontents unhappy with decisions I made. And now if I provide Daemon and Corlys succor, which is a cool word, Succor, what will that say of their king?
Lots of good medieval vocabulary words in this episode.
Yeah, totally. So, perhaps that he's a good man who loves his brother. And he's like, well, if you truly believe that, my dear, then you possess a generous spirit. And she says, well, what do you believe, Viserys? And he says, that I'm forever doomed to anger one person in the pleasing of another, and he's just caught between, like we talked about earlier, he's craving love and approval, and this leads to this endless indecision that he's stuck in. Like this situation in the Stepstones has been going on for 3 years.
Yeah, that's a very long time to be waging a war to no end.
Yeah. So it's just crazy. And then Alicent is able to put things in perspective for him in a brilliant way. It seems like she's actually helping him. And she says, then I pose a simpler question. Is it better for the realm if the crab feeder thrives or is vanquished? And it was kind of like a genius way to take all the personal crap out of it and just think
What's
about
better?
the realm and what's best. And a genius way to reframe things, I thought. And yeah, that's basically, I think that pretty much wraps everything up for my well, actually a little bit more at we got stuff going on at the Stepstones with how Vaemond is planting the seeds of mutiny and everything, and that uncertainty is causing disruption among the men. It's interesting. Daemon lands and and he walks over and smugly leans against the table. And you can see just like the resentment of all the men around him as they stare at him. And then we get word that Viserys, and we get the first of his name, King of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms, and Protector of the Realm.
I totally thought Daemon was just going to like punch the guy or just cut him off. Like, shut up. We know his titles. Give me the message. But Daemon surprisingly let him go on with the list. The Unburnt, the Breaker of Chains.
Yeah, probably just for us, because it was like, oh, cool. We haven't heard this this rattling off of titles.
The spiel.
Titles. And Daemon does not like the fact that he's sending help, that Viserys is sending aid, and he starts beating the crap out of the messenger. And I'm like, no,
brutal.
don't kill the messenger. Everybody knows that. You don't kill them. This is not Sparta. And referencing 300 when he kicks the guy into the hole.
Good thing that guy wasn't standing at the edge of the cliff.
Yeah, right.
Daemon would have just Leonidas'd him down the cliff.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and so that pretty much wraps up my theme of uncertainty. It's just that everybody's uncertain the whole time. The Hightowers are uncertain. They want to solidify their place in the line of succession. Rhaenyra's uncertain. Viserys is uncertain. The bannermen throughout the realm are uncertain. Uncertainty is just gripping the realm at this moment. It's brutal.
Yeah.
2 cups of rice. Brutal.
Very not a good thing.
So what's your numero uno, Brostein?
My number one was the White Stag. How there was no White Stag for Viserys, and that being a sign for baby Aegon that he's the chosen one. But they get a regular stag, and Viserys does his duty and slays the stag. Takes him 2 tries to vanquish it. But after Rhaenyra's encounter with the wild boar, just small side note, Kristen Cole didn't really impress me with his face off with the boar. He got like flung like a rag doll, and then he did come back after the fact and stab it through the face. But like, did you see how close his blade came to Rhaenyra?
Super close. It's like inches from her face.
But I'm sure he planned it. I'm sure he planned his thrust just the right amount.
Just the right.
Anyway.
And how the hell did that boar not kill Rhaenyra? It's like 100 pounds of boar like boring down on her face.
I mean, the first thing they do is they take those tusks and they'll I've seen people's legs, hunters and people who are just out in the field, like they hit your legs because I mean that's what's on the level with them. But yeah, in real life, that thing would have started ripping Rhaenyra, her guts or chest or face or all of the above. But anyway, so she sticks him with a pointy end. Go Arya, go
Yeah.
Rhaenyra.
Freaking
She
out.
goes ape. She goes ape on it, and then the next day she's still covered in blood, and they're up there on the bluff looking down at the camp, and then they're just quietly taking in the moment, and then they both kind of look over to their right, and there he is, the White Stag, just standing
There
there.
he is, just chilling.
Kristen Cole like slowly starts to take out his blade, and Rhaenyra is like, "Stop it! We're not killing it. Leave it alone. It's just there." And, like, there's no way you could get close enough to a stag with a sword. Anyway.
He's gonna like toss
Unless
it.
it's tied up by a bunch of
Javelin.
knights on horses.
Yeah, and that's the
But-
thing too, is that like everybody did all the work for Viserys, but when Rhaenyra comes back the next day drenched in blood, it's apparent she did her own hunting. You know, like she did it herself.
Right, and that moment with the White Stag for her was organic.
Yeah,
They're just there on the bluff, and he just walks up.
yeah,
You know,
that was cool.
if you're going to believe it's a sign from on high, then it's for Rhaenyra. So, which goes back to my number 5, Team Rhaenyra, ride or die. Let's go. The White Stag agrees.
The gods are on our side, baby.
Kristen Cole agrees. So it was just, it was just a cool moment
The White Stag
where he just
agrees.
walks up and they look over and he's right there. He just kind of stands there for a few seconds and kind of looks at them,
chilling on the
looks
bluff.
around, and they kind of take in the moment, and he just turns around and he's gone.
Yeah, there are some theories regarding Blood Raven and his, that he may have been because he can control like all of the hundreds of ravens. He can control anything. He's like the ultimate warg. People are thinking that maybe he had controlled the boar that gored.
Robert.
Robert,
Yeah.
probably not true, but there could be some the gods, so to speak, if they're the old gods, or they could be like, I don't know, controlling the animals in a certain way that it really could be a sign from the gods, you know?
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
I don't think so.
All right, my number 1 was dragons. I just like the dragon effects were great in this episode.
Yeah.
The squirming bloodworm crawling around with his big long neck and breathing fire. And then his squirming body as he flies through the air. And then we got, I thought it was Cyrax at first, but it's Sea Smoke, Laenor Valerion's dragon, who's kicking some ass too. Sucker for dragons, I guess. It was just, I just like all the dragon stuff though. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it's Deus Ex Dragona. Laenor shows up right at Daemon's moment of peril as all the crabs start to surround him right there by that. I think it's like the hull of a ship.
Yeah, they're on all sides.
He's all sides. And did you catch what the crab feeder was doing the whole time?
No, what was he doing?
Ever since Daemon walked up and he had the truce flag, and then he starts fighting them. Every time it cut back to the crab feeder, he's looking up at the sky.
Oh yeah. He's just looking out for the dragons. Like, where are they?
Where is it at? Where is it? Because he stayed right there by the mouth of the cave. Because if the dragons show up, he can head back in the cave. Meanwhile, all his guys, which is what we realize at the end, what they're trying to do is to draw out all the crabs so they could roast them. And one other time, when they're on the hillside, before Daemon gets back, I think Vaemond or Corlys says dragons, plural, can fly over Bloodstone, whatever the name of that island is, Bloodstone or Ravenstone or
something cool.
Owlstone. There's another name that when Viserys sent the messenger, he said, take this to Mothstone or Owlstone or something like that. Dovestone, I don't know, Quailstone or something. Anyway,
Quailman.
When they're over there, I think it's Vaemond or Corlys says dragons, plural, can circle Bloodstone all day long. But that's just a quick little throwaway line. And you're like, what, there's Caraxes, and who else is over there?
Yeah.
At that point,
I didn't even catch it at that moment.
But it was just like a little clue that I caught on the rewatch. I was like, oh, he said dragons.
Yeah. Same here. I noticed the rewatch.
But it was cool. It was very cool, like that smoky, grayish color that Sea Smoke had. He shows up. We get Dracarys a couple of times. And then we get a little Anakin Skywalker. Woo! This is what I call pod racing. I thought we were going to maybe get a funny little line from him, but he just goes, woo! I was like, that would be pretty fun to be in battle, got your armor on, you're on your dragon, and you're just flying around roasting people.
Yeah, just roasting them.
The woo we get, woo, is when sea smoke flies along, and he doesn't burn anybody. He grabs a couple of people with his feet and then flings them, and you see them fly and woo, before they start falling. And he goes, woo!
That's the other thing I was going to mention is just how cool it was that he swooped down and grabbed a couple guys and his claws just set them flying.
Yeah, I think Drogon did that maybe once or twice in the Game of Thrones series.
Oh, yeah, probably with all those whites running around. He probably like clawed him. I bet. I don't remember exactly, but pretty badass. Yeah, so that pretty much wraps up my number one. Shall we just go through anything we may have missed?
Yeah, that I was just marking off the last of my notes. We kind of covered all the notes that I had written down as we went along.
Nice, nice. The crab feeder looks fucked. I think we already talked about that. There's some cool music during the fight scene. There's like it's kind of like a battle version of the Game of Thrones theme. Dun, 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 dun. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but I'll overlay it. And let's see. There's a shot where the crab feeder is standing in the mouth of that cave that he's kind of holed up in. And it's looking out from inside of the cave, and he's standing there, and the Caraxes is like crawling around, and you see the fire everywhere. And the shape of the cave kind of looks like Al-Mamun's forced entry, which is this, like the way that this Muslim Caliph Al-Mamun in like a number of centuries ago, in order to force his way into the Great Pyramid, he hacked a hole into it, allegedly. May have hacked his way out with treasure. But there's this entryway that I feature in the core saga with an image, and it looks just like that. Same shaped breach and everything. So that was kind of cool. Yeah, it's hard to tell with the crab feeder where his mask begins and his skin ends, you know?
Yeah, but there's definitely a mask. I was wondering that the same thing too last week, but a couple of shots from behind him, when he's out in daylight, you can see this like little leather cord strap or this cord that kind of holds
on the back
the mask on its head, but it's definitely kind of melds into his face and the mask definitely kind of meld together.
Yeah, crazy. And you can tell he's missing a lot of hair. He doesn't look like he's in good health. He never says a word. He's a character leading an army who never says anything, which is kind of cool. 0 lines. It seems to me like he's more of the brains and less of the brawn. I don't know if he would be able to put up much of a fight.
Right. I mean, if he's that infected with grayscale, he was probably not much of a physical match for Daemon.
Yeah. And Daemon doesn't have any trouble with him. Dark Sister literally slices him completely in half. Nice cut.
Remember what Daemon told him when he was looking for him at the very beginning? It was night, and he was on Caraxes.
Feed you to your crabs.
Where are you, Dreha? Where are you? I'm going to feed you to your crabs. And he brought half his body out there, and presumably is going to leave it for the crabs.
Yeah. There's a couple lines here too, which are funny about baby Aegon, 2 years old, and already our boy has a kingly presence. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, people just talking nonsense.
Yeah, and then I think it's Otto who says, it's his second name day. Oh no, it's Hobert. A couple lines later, he says, "It is Aegon's second name day. His infancy is behind him." It's like, all right, I guess he's still a baby.
Yeah,
dude.
so I guess definitely still a baby, but maybe that. I'm trying to remember if they discussed this with.
I guess he's a toddler, not an infant now.
Who has the baby? Craster's daughter, Gilly.
Yeah.
I think maybe in the books they talk about the first 2 years in this.
Right, they don't even name them.
The wildlings, or maybe it's Craster's.
Yeah.
Some people group. Yeah, they don't even name them until they're past 2 years of age, or maybe an older age. But I think it's 2. So I think there is a significance for getting through that second full year.
Yeah, definitely.
Where they're out of infancy and into childhood or toddlerhood or whatever.
Really quick, I'll just mention we got a mention of Lady Johanna. Ciara Lannister is talking about her, and I thought that was interesting because it reminded me of Joanna Lannister, who was Tyrion's mom. But apparently, this lady Johanna has been captured by the pirates, and she's going to be sent to a pillow house. That's not good. I thought the Stepstones were in Essos. My Westerosi geography has been vanquished over the past 3 years.
They're basically in between Essos and
Yeah,
Westeros.
it's right at the base of Westeros where Dorne kind of shoots out a little bit. It's between Dorne and the undisputed lands in southern Essos, so that's pretty cool. I've got I've got one when I saw that Kristen Cole and Rhaenyra had found a place to chill. Nice little nook in the woods with some downed trees and stuff. They're chilling out. I was like, where's Netflix when you need it? You know what I'm saying? Bound chicka wow wow.
One other little note. So Daemon had a few lines at the very beginning of the episode. He's on Caraxes and he's calling out Prince Drahar.
Drahar, where are you? Come out and find me. I'll feed you to your crabs.
But then once we leave King's Landing and go to the Stepstones.
Back after like the first half of the episode. Right, because it starts off in the Stepstones for like a minute and a half, and then it goes to King's Landing for like half an hour, and then we go back to the Stepstones.
For that final, third or quarter of the episode. And the War Council is meeting up there on the hill. And then Daemon, dragon, what did they say? Dragon returning. It's like, does that really need to be a call that's made?
Like it's pretty obvious.
Everybody has eyeballs. It's this huge, black and red worm.
I am the red worm.
It's like when they say Rangers returning at the wall.
Oh,
it's
right.
Okay, they say that because somebody spots them and sees them and blows one horn for Rangers returning, open the gate, whatever. I mean, that's communication at the wall. But it's like, dragon returning. It's like, is that really necessary? But anyway, so Daemon lands, walks down the hill. He gets the letter, beats up the messenger. And then the next thing we see, he's on the rowboat over to where the crab feeder is and his crabs. And Matt Smith doesn't say a word. The whole sequence, once we go back to the Stepstones, no dialogue. It's all just acting, physical acting.
True.
All the way into the crab feeder's cave, out of the crab feeder's cave, nothing. No words, just action. So I thought that was pretty neat.
Made a great foil to the crab feeder in that way, because the crab feeder has no dialogue through the whole series, as it turns out, before he's killed. So having Daemon be like his silent opposition, is like equal and opposite in that way for the second half of this episode. Yeah, so that was really cool. Good catch. I like that. That's badass. There's a funny line with Viserys. He says, when Alicent is meeting with him back at the Red Keep after the party, she's like, "How are you feeling, husband?" And he's like, "The gods have punished me for my indulgences." He's all hungover. I thought that was a great way to describe a hangover.
Nice.
Pretty
but the
classic.
wine was good.
Yeah, the wine was too good.
Too good. Imagine being king. So you have the finest wine, the finest food, always at your disposal. I mean, I would be huge. I would, weigh 400 pounds if I just at a whim could just say, "Bring me a steak. Bring me this, bring me that."
You'd be Robert Zachary Bruce.
Exactly. I mean, Bobby B, he's swole up. He needed, what they say? He told Lancel, "Go get the breastplate stretcher." Yeah, I would need a new set of armor probably every 6 months.
For sure. Breastplate stretchers. You need like 10 people stretching that breastplate.
Exactly. Bring me some pigeon pie.
Totally. Oh yeah, when Laenor arrives on Sea Smoke, it took me like 3 or 4 shots of him before I realized that it was not Syrax and Rhaenyra. I was like, "Oh shit, is that Rhaenyra? Syrax!" Then I finally see the blonde hair coming out of the helmets, out of his helmet, and I was like, "Oh, it's Laenor!" At first I didn't realize that it was him.
I saw it was a dragon, and it's obviously he wasn't dark like Caraxes. I was like, "Is this a new dragon or is this Syrax?" And then it showed him, the gray color, and then it showed Laenor, and I was like, "Oh yes!" And then at one point, the next time it shows him, it's from below or above. I think it's from below, so he looks darker because it's looking up against the sky.
Oh, like backlit.
And I thought that was like another dark dragon. I was like, is it Caraxes without Daemon or another new dragon? I thought it was 2 dragons in play at the end there.
Oh.
But then it went back to him and kind of showed him from above, and he kind of torches a line of archers, along one of those ridges.
Yeah, that was cool.
That, grayish, whitish color again. I'm like, okay, that's definitely the first dragon that I saw, but it took me a minute to realize that it was only Laenor and Sea smoke at,
Sneak smoke.
that was in the situation, in the scenario. But it would have cool to
Where was
to
the
see.
blood worm at the end there?
Yeah, I was like, well, it'd been cool for Caraxes just to show up and basically defend Daemon's position.
Yeah.
And just without Daemon being on him, or just fly around and just provide some aerial support. You know, can dragon, without the dragon rider, can dragons, you know, accurately determine friend from foe? Things George doesn't explain to us.
Yeah, that's a good question. Because he has to say Dracarys, you know, when he wants it to fire. It seemed
Right.
like Sea Smoke was able to see that's Daemon in the middle there and shot the fire all around him. And Daemon went flying in the burst of fire. It's almost like the fire is
Yeah,
like
that
an
was crazy.
explosion. There's one shot where
Mhm.
the dragon, there's a guy running in the darkness of the beach. Ah! You know, and I think it's Caraxes comes flying through and
Yeah.
roasts him. And all that's left of him is just his foot flopping around it like it vaporizes his body instantly.
Right, that's like book accurate, where George talks about
Yeah.
how extremely hot dragon fire is, and to where it literally vaporizes people, melts flesh, it melts bone. I mean, instantaneous. So when I saw that at the beginning, that was a really cool effect.
Yeah,
There's a guy
super
running,
cool.
and then just this burst of flame annihilates him, and all that's left is what was outside that sheath of flame was just his foot and maybe the first half of his shin, and that's just left there.
It just flops around.
Crazy.
I thought it was cool how the pirates had taken these hillsides on these you know and cut the terraces into them.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. It was like, this is wartime terraces, not irrigation for farming.
Right. Yeah. We're not. What do they farm on terraces? Rice or can't remember. No, rice has to be flooded.
Yeah, probably
know.
different stuff in different places because they have terraces in like Peru, you know, terraces and, you know, all different areas of the world. I think they're kind of found, but I really don't know. Another interesting little kind of Game of Thrones connection. When Daemon is doing his suicide rush, and at one point he gets stuck with like 3 arrows immediately, like all in within like a second of each other, and he drops to his knees, and it made me think of Robb Stark at the Red Wedding. I think they might have been trying to trick us for a second, thinking that he was getting killed, because it was like the same imagery and the same way he dropped to his knees that Robb Stark did when he got stuck with those arrows. And I was like, oh man, this is crazy. And yeah, you mentioned how cool it was, the burning carcasses of the ships lying around. I agree. I thought that was really cool. Epic, especially during the night shots, like these hulking skeletons of like the ship bodies and everything. And yeah, I think that pretty much covers all my notes. Anything else for you?
No, that's it.
All right. We'll take a quick break then. There's more to come. Stay with us. Okay, for news about Game of Thrones, you had mentioned something interesting about IMDb scores for this episode, didn't you?
Okay, so Heirs of the Dragon episode 1 came in with an IMDb score of 8.8, pretty good. The Rogue Prince episode 2 was 8.5, but Second of His Name episode 3, 9.9. So my rating of 5 out of 5 earlier was accurate. 9.9. You can't. I don't think IMDb gets much higher than 9.9. So
Yeah.
pretty exciting.
Wow.
People are really enjoying episode 3, and I believe that 9.9 is right up there in the ratings with Battle of the Bastards and The Winds of Winter.
Amazing.
So the end of season 6 had some epic episodes.
And sadly, Miguel Sapochnik, who is one of the, he was the showrunner of House of the Dragon. I think he directed at least one of those 2 episodes, Battle of the Bastards, I think.
I know he did that one. He did the Battle of Winterfell in season 8.
I think. Oh,
He
that's
did Hard
what I'm
Home.
thinking. Yeah, the Battle of, yeah.
The Battle of Blackness.
He's apparently he's just stepped down as showrunner for this show, so hopefully that won't have negative consequences for the quality of the production. But I think he's still going to be on board as a producer and possibly director. Maybe he just needed to get everything the way that it should be to move forward, and he's done his job and set the standards in place that they'll be able to follow from now on in producing the show. Hopefully, 'cause he
Yeah,
just did a
I'm
great
thinking,
job.
I think Condal, was the co-showrunner, and he was kind of the writer who was basically brainstorming the script and the story, the plot with George. So he's sort of the writer behind the series, and Sapochnik is more, a director and logistics, kind of a person, So being an episode director before. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking that, Condal has the story and has the helm going forward. So I'm
You
thinking
have the watch, or what, isn't there?
Exactly,
Is that
exactly.
what it is?
Lord Commander. I'm thinking Sapochnik is going to start developing something.
Oh, another show. Oh, because that's what they said, that he was still going to be developing something.
I don't know if it's part of the GOTCU or if it's just developing something else outside of Westeros for HBO. But I mean, I'm thinking he's going to develop Nymeria, or they may bring him on to the Jon Snow series.
Jon
I don't know
Snow.
if they have a showrunner yet for that.
Right, because that article did say that he's still on board with HBO producing, developing some new stuff, right? So odds are it's probably something Westeros related.
I think so. So whether it's
Fascinating.
Nymeria and her 10,000 ships, or I want to see Aegon's conquest.
I know, right?
That's what I
Ugh.
really want to see. Specifically the Field of Fire. Like
Oh yeah.
that. I mean, some people have surmised that after they finish the dance with House of the Dragon, they could turn the show into an anthology kind of a series.
Yeah.
So they could do Jaehaerys if they wanted to. That may be kind of boring.
Yeah.
But they could go back and do Aegon's Conquest. They could do Robert's Rebellion and
Maegor
the
the
fall
Cruel.
of the Targaryen reign. They could do like a one season or just a few episode, a mini season kind of Maegor. There's a lot of different, and then everything kind of in between the dance, the Blackfire Rebellion. So they could do House of the Dragon outside of the Dance of the Dragons and continue under this same show, the same series, and it's all about the Target. So they called it House of the Dragon.
Right, true.
They didn't name the show The Dance of the Dragons because that would kind of limit it.
Yeah, it could be anything regarding the Targaryen house.
Exactly. So they could go all the way back to Aegon, or before they could get, a prologue of House Targaryen leaving Valyria with Daenerys the Dreamer.
Yeah.
And then getting to Aegon in the prologue, and then that have a 1 or 2 or 3 episode, or 1, 2 or 3 season arc of Aegon's Conquest.
Oh, man.
There's a lot of things they could do just in House of the Dragon. So they named it that name, and that name gives them a lot of flexibility story wise.
Flexibility.
Once they finish with the dance.
I think it would be cool to get some like super, super ancient Stark stuff, like some of the ancient Stark kings that are down in the crypts of Winterfell. That would be really cool. Bran the Builder and stuff.
Yeah, I mean they may have been. I think some of that was in play in that Long Night Blood Moon series that got scrapped.
Oh man,
and they shot a pilot for that and everything. So that was, can't remember how far back in history, but it was pretty far back.
That's like as far back as it goes, I think.
There was the previous Long Night, so
super far back.
Would have been with the Stark kings of old, but that one got scrapped. So
I heard somebody speculating that saying how cool it would be if we got a flashback, because they've mentioned Balerion a couple times in this series. We have Viserys who rode Balerion. Imagine if we got a flashback to younger Viserys riding Balerion, so we could get an idea of just how huge and terrifying he is. Like it could be a dream sequence or memory or something.
Definitely. I'm thinking they would probably save that. If long term they plan on going back and doing Aegon's Conquest, I think they would save Balerion for that show.
Probably
But
right.
if they were sure they were never going to do that, which, I mean, things change, but they might do that in a dream sequence, but it'd have to be pretty epic to give Balerion his due.
Yeah, super, super epic. Speaking of epic, did you see on IMDb the picture for this episode? It's of Corlys Valerion holding his battle axe.
Yeah, that was his axe, and his helmet and armor was all really cool.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
The helmets remind me of football helmets.
Yeah, his is just like, kind of slick straight back. It's like, I like his helmet way more than the Kingsguard,
the Magneto
helmet.
I love those Magneto helmets. His axe is so cool too, and it's got chinks cut out of it, like all along the lower half of the blade. You can tell it's been used. It's definitely not Valyrian steel. Unfortunately, you'd think that the Valerians would have some Valyrian, right? What's up with that?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll find out something about that at some point.
They're the second sons of the realm, so they don't deserve Valyrian steel, I guess.
Poor second sons. You and me, we're firstborns, right?
I'm middle. I'm a second son.
Oh, I didn't know
I'm
that.
Second of three.
I knew you had a younger brother. Nice. All right. So let's move on to Raven's calls.
Caw-caw.
All right. Lord Corey Eugene Kuhn says, last High Gardener of High Garden here. I wanted to note that when Rhaenyra states that no one is here for me, I got a shiver. This was shortly after she explains she does not want to go on the hunt because boars sound like children squealing when being slaughtered, only to go off with the only one there who seems to take note of her, Sir Criston Cole. This gallivant includes a sleepover in which Criston Cole and her slaughter a boar, squeals and all. This duo has my attention. Additionally, he says, it didn't give me shivers, but that mural on the wall while the Hightowers were talking got my blood moving. 69 surrounded by a 5 and 3. 5 and 3. What does that mean?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm gonna have to look at that to understand the 5 and 3. Yeah, he says, nice. I was hitting pause and trying to get a look like a teen with scrambled Cinemax on satellite back in the day. I remember those scrambled images, trying to pause to see those boobies. Yep.
Sir Matthew Rip says, it's nice to see that the Lannister smugness genes go back through the ancestral line. The White Stag is such an important figure in European folklore, often thought to be an omen of great change to those that see it. It prophesied the forging of new nations in Hungarian legend.
Ooh.
The Celts thought the appearance of the White Stag only appears to those that betray an oath. It'll be interesting to see what it means that Rhaenyra saw it while Viserys did not. I suppose the phrase, don't shoot the messenger, didn't exist in Westeros.
Yeah, this is apparently Westeros is Sparta, like we said earlier. We've got a voicemail from Archmaester Stitches.
Nice.
Lord Sterling, Lord Zach, episode 3. Actually, I haven't really done my thoughts on 1 or 2, so I'm just going to, I guess, summarize up things so far. This is Archmaester Stitches from the Siren Citadel amongst the Stitched Isle. And, yeah, dude, I am so digging this series. I think the dragon action coming right out the gate versus waiting, seasons of wondering if and how it's going to go down. And in Game of Thrones, it's really nice just to have the action just come like right out with the flying of the golden dragon in the beginning, and then all the action that went on in this episode that we just witnessed on episode 3. But yeah, man, the politics and everything I think is really, really great. I hope that they don't dive too deep into like the other houses of a time. I mean, I know last night we got the introduction of the Lannisters and that kind of stuff, like really, showing the twins and those kind of things and the Strongs. And I know that they're important later on in the story, but I just don't. I want to stay centered around this Targaryen punch as far as the plot and all that goes for this series, because they have so much ground to cover, and I think that probably people are going to be really jumped a lot by these time jumps, because it just seems like each episode is going to be an even longer time jump in between them, because we went from a few months to we had a giant time jump between the intro and the all the rest of episode 1, but that aside, we jumped 6 months and now 2 years, so the next one gonna just keep multiplying. I don't really care, man. I'm up for all of it. I'm even up for forwards and backwards. Like if we have an episode that goes back in time, I'm just so anxious to see how they're gonna do this cinematic telling of this story, because it's so great, and it could give us, depending on how they tell it, we got 10 seasons of House of the Dragon, which I would welcome. I enjoy it. It's brought life back to my Sundays. And so have you guys. Y'all's coverage has been so great, and I can't wait to hopefully later on in the season, join you guys for a full episode. And it's just like we haven't missed a beat. I feel like we just got through listening to all the coverage on that you guys did for Game of Thrones, and I was happy to be a part of a few episodes of that. And I can't wait to see where House of the Dragon goes. You guys keep up the great work, and death to the crab feeder. Go, Damon.
Thanks for sending a message, Johnny. Always love to hear from you. Glad to hear you're stoked on the show, man, and looking forward to having you on soon. All right, that's our show, episode 123. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
And a huge thank you to John Bailey, the epic voice guy from the Emmy-nominated Honest Trailers, for announcing our show. Damn, that guy's voice is cool. Boobs. On another note, if you enjoy my take on things, you might be excited to learn that I'm working on a project of my own. It's a series in novel screenplay hybrid form, and I'm already over 1,100 pages into it. Just imagine the Da Vinci Code, Indiana Jones, Splinter Cell, Project Blue Book, Journey to the Center of the Earth, War of the Worlds, and Independence Day, all combined into one post-World War II epic, The Core Saga. It's going to be great. More information on that soon. If you'd like to donate or subscribe to support us, you can go to paypal.me/GOM podcast or patreon.com/GOM podcast to donate an amount of your choosing. There are links to both at gameofmicrophones.com. Doing some online shopping? Then go on over to gameofmicrophones.com, scroll down to the bottom, and click on our link to Amazon. As an Amazon associate, we earn from qualifying purchases.
Any contribution you make helps, and you can help secure the continued existence of GOM.
And make sure to check out Sirenicide, the serialized horror drama podcast featuring me and Archmaester Stitches. Go to Sirenicide.com and download it wherever you get your podcasts. And also check out Hearing the Haunted, his horror anthology series, which is awesome as well. You guys will love it. Next episode, we'll be covering House of the Dragon, Season 1, Episode 4, King of the Narrow Sea. We'll be recording on Monday afternoons for the rest of the season, so make sure you send us your episode feedback ASAP following the show's airtime so we can include your thoughts on Game of Microphones.
If you'd like to call and leave a voicemail, call us at 813-JOFFREY. That's 813-563-3739.
If you'd like to write in, you can email us at ravens@gameofmicrophones.com.
Make sure to join us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/GOM podcast. Each week we'll be posting a feedback thread where you can leave your thoughts and comments on new episodes for us to read on air.
Imp slap. You can also watch Game of Microphones on YouTube. Audio podcasts are great, but video is better. We're currently trying to build our minuscule subscriber count, so please go to youtube.com/gameofmicrophones and subscribe right now. Likes, comments, and shares are appreciated.
We're also on Twitter, Instagram, Gab, and Minds at GOM Podcast.
And we're on Tumblr too at Game of Microphones. All right, that's our show. Giggity giggity. Thanks for listening. It is Aegon's second name day. His infancy is behind him. It only remains for Viserys to name him heir to the throne.
Wouldn't be so sure.
He's the king's firstborn son.
I don't know that his grace sees it so clearly.
Then it lies with you to make him see it.
Sweet meteor of death, you know.
Yeah.
Come and take me. And even Rhaenyra talked about that in the Horsla Model X. That's what I call their wagon. That wagon is so like futuristic looking. Ride or die, Team Rhaenyra. Let's go. Me and Kristen Cole. Let's go.
Yeah. Let's go. Kingsguard versus Marine. That'd be a pretty good fight.
Yeah.
Wed her for duty, and so as not to honor her or Okay. All right.
Team Rhaenyra. Ride or die. Let's go. The White Stag agrees.
The gods are on our side, baby.
Kristen Cole agrees.
Those in the earth, but I was now in your mandat. I feel about a year with Joseph.